My 17th birthday was just a few days away, and I needed a new pair of shoes to celebrate my birthday. I like ordering items online because they are cheaper. No week passes by that a delivery man wouldn't deliver some goods at my door. But I wanted to celebrate my birthday with a new shoe. I didn't want to celebrate my birthday in my old shoes. Even though most of the shoes I have, I don't usually wear them. On this fateful day, I was at home doing nothing, so I decided to order a shoe for my 17th birthday. I do not have a lot of friends, therefore, I am planning my birthday myself. I was sitting on the sofa when I heard a knock on my door. When I opened the door, I met a charming-looking young man who came to deliver my order. I couldn't take my eyes off him because of his charming looks. The delivery boy noticed that my eyes were fixated on him, so he didn't want to look at me directly in the eye. "Hi, I am Alyssa," I introduced myself to him. I was the one that ordered these pairs of shoes online. This time, the delivery boy raised his head and told me that he was aware that I ordered the pair of shoes. He said that was why he is at my door. He handed over the pair of shoes to me and turned back to take his leave. While he was walking towards his bike, I checked the shoe he delivered to me and I noticed that the shoe he brought was not mine. "Hey sir, please come back," I quickly called him. When the delivery boy returned to where I was standing, I told him that the shoe he brought was not mine. I told him that I was very sure because the pack looked too small, and I do not believe that my shoe can fit in a small pack like the one you gave to me. The delivery boy came back smiling and told me to wait. "Oh, it's another pack. The first pack I gave to you was for my mother, and she ordered a pen or something." The delivery boy collected the shoes he gave me the first time and gave me the original shoe I ordered. I was already having him in her dreams at that time. I was already looking forward to having him in her arms all day long. At this stage, I knew the only way I can have the delivery boy is by inviting him for a coffee. When he handed the shoes to me, I invited him for a coffee but he resisted. After much pressure, he obliged and entered my room. When the delivery boy entered my room, he decided to stand. I was not comfortable with the way he was standing, so I told him to sit on the sofa. When he sat, I sat close to him and started engaging him in a conversation. I quickly excused myself to get him water from the fridge. When I brought the water to him, we continued our conversation. I had already fallen in love with the delivery boy, so I wanted to know everything about him. I thought the best way to start a meaningful conversation with the delivery boy was to ask personal questions. I thought I would be able to persuade him through my speech. I wanted to ask her the first major question. I thought it will be better if I ask about his family first. I know before he answer all my questions, I would get what I wanted. "So, tell me about your family background." No sooner than the delivery boy start talking about his family than I excused myself again. This time I quickly went into her bedroom. I changed into a sexier outfit that would attract the delivery boy. When I came out of her bedroom, I noticed that the delivery boy could not stop looking at her cleavages. I started whispering in her mind. I knew I was getting closer to what I wanted. "So, I am all ears. Tell me about your family background." "I was born into an average family," he said. "My mother and my father do menial jobs to support me, my brothers, and my sisters. I have 2 brothers and a sister. My brother works in a post office as an accountant while my sister works as a hairstylist in a salon. I am the first child of my family, so it means I gave a lot of responsibilities to shoulder." Alyssa asked him when he started working as a delivery boy. He said I started working as a delivery boy immediately after I left high school. I left high school at the age of 18 and I am 24 years at the moment, which means I have been working as a delivery boy for the past 6 years. I asked him if he has any plans of going to college. For now, he said I still see myself as a delivery boy, but I am saving up to enroll in college in the next few years. I have always dreamt of becoming a computer engineer since I was a young boy. I would do everything humanly possible to achieve that goal. Oh, I also want to study computer engineering in college too. It seems that we have a lot of things in common. I just graduated from high school and I will want to try other things before I get enrolled in college. My love for the delivery boy continued to increase while I listened to his story. I didn't want the conversation to stop because we were already making eye contact. "I want to know about your hobbies." "My hobbies are traveling, watching football, reading, watching movies, and listening to music." My love for traveling was one of the reasons I took the delivery job 6 years ago. I wanted to flow with the conversation and I wanted the delivery boy to believe that we had a lot of things in common, so I told him I also love traveling, even though I am always indoors most of the time. I asked him the countries he has traveled to. To my surprise, the delivery boy said he has never traveled out of the United States. He said he has only traveled to some states in the United States like Florida, Texas, Alabama, and New York. The delivery boy asked me a question for the first time in the conversation. He asked about the countries I have traveled to. Pardon my manners, I pleaded. I said I didn't ask for his name since we started the conversation. He told me his name is Mike. He said he didn't ask for my name because he has already seen my name on the parcel he delivered to me. Now back to the question, I said. I told him I have traveled to the United Kingdom, Spain, France, and Canada. He asked me the reason I traveled to those countries I mentioned. I told him I visited those countries mostly on vacation. You said you like watching football. Which football team is your favorite? He said, although I live in the United States, my favorite football team is Barcelona Football Club. I support the Barcelona Football Club because of Lionel Messi. I do not watch football because I do not like it, Alyssa said. Even though I see a lot of women playing football nowadays, I still believe it is a men's game. Who knows, I might start supporting Barcelona Football Club because of you. I will be very happy if you do that. You will enjoy watching Barcelona Football Club because they play sexy and attractive football just like you. Did you just say I am sexy? Alyssa asked. Yes, you are, the delivery boy replied. At this moment, I knew I was on her way to getting what I wanted, but I wanted to take my time. I thought the best way of continuously getting closer to him is to continue the conversation we were having. So you said you like reading, can you tell me about the books you have read? I have read a lot of novels. I have lost count of the number of novels I have read. Although, the majority of the novels I have are romance novels. I just love romance novels. If I may ask, why do you like romance novels? Alyssa said. I like romance novels because I want to be romantic. I want to be a romantic boyfriend for my girlfriend. I don't want to be a boring boyfriend. That is interesting, Alyssa said. So, tell me the names of some of the novels you have read. I will like to have them too, I said. I also want to learn how to be romantic. If that is the case, I will help you bring a lot of romance novels that I have. Do not stress yourself by going to the bookshop, the delivery boy said. I got up and embraced the delivery boy. She said she was very happy with his kind gesture. After the hug, I returned to where I was sitting. This time, I moved closer to Mike again. You said you like movies too, so tell me the movies you have watched. I was more interested in this movie aspect because I am a lover of movies too. Most times when I am in my room, I am always watching movies. I like comedy movies, the delivery boy said. I love movies that make me laugh and take off the daily stress that I have passed through at work. So, tell me your type of movies too, the delivery boy asked. Alyssa said. I love romantic movies a lot, Alyssa replied. The same way you said you have lost count on the number of books you have read, is the same way I have lost count on the number of romantic movies I have watched, Alyssa told the delivery boy. I like romance movies because they are always lengthy. I like romantic movies too, Mike said. I do not watch them because they are very lengthy, and it takes a lot of time to watch. You know I am a very busy man, so it will be difficult for me to watch lengthy movies, Mike said. That is the reason I love short comic movies. I can watch them within a few hours, and they help me relax well as I said before. Alias said she will want Mike to follow her to the cinema very soon. Mike obliged and promised to follow her to the cinema when he is off duty. Alias couldn't contain her joy when Mike told her he will follow her to the cinema. She said she can't wait to go and have a nice time at the cinema with him. Now, let us talk about your music taste, Alyssa said. Tell me the types of songs you listen to and your favorite artists. I am a big fan of R&B songs. I like songs that are slow and have strong lyrical content. I was smiling after Mike's explanation. So tell me who your favorite artists are. I am a big fan of Chris Brown and R. Kelly, Mike said. I told Mike that I want us to play a game. I told him that I want to know if he is a big fan of the artists he mentioned. I told him that I want him to list 10 songs of the artists he mentioned as his favorite. Mike laughed and he started listing it. Mike said he will start with R. Kelly. Mike said some of R. Kelly's songs that he knows are I Believe I Can Fly, The Same Girl, It Seems That You Are Ready, I'm a Flirt, Down Low, Trapped in the Closet, If I Could Turn Back the Hands of Time, Fiesta, Sex Planet, I Wish, You Remind Me of Something and Half on a Baby. I was wowed as Mike continued to list R. Kelly songs. I am surprised, Alyssa said. But you have to list Chris Brown songs too for you to win the game. Mike nodded his head and kept smiling. Mike said some of Chris Brown's songs that he knows are Forever, Blow My Mind, Undecided, Don't Wake Me Up, Track Star, Run It, Take You Down, New Flame, Under the Influence, Loyal, No Guidance, and Go Crazy. You won. Now I agree that you are a big R&B fan and you are also a fan of Chris Brown and R. Kelly. Mike also returned the gesture. So, tell me your type of music and your favorite artist too, Mike said. I told him I love R&B songs too. Mike asked who my favorite artists are. I told him I like Celine Dion, Rihanna, and Beyonce. Mike told me that I should also mention 10 songs of these artists. I mentioned. I said, so you want me to mention 10 songs because I asked you to mention 10 songs. I said, okay, I accept the challenge. I started with Celine Dion. I said some of Celine Dion's songs that she knows are My Heart Will Go On, I Surrender, It's All Coming Back to Me Now, All by Myself, The Power of Love, To Love You More, I'm Alive, Have You Ever Been in Love, Ashes, A New Day Has Come, Beauty and the Beast, and Just Walk Away. I told him that some of Rihanna's songs that she knows are Umbrella, Diamonds, We Found Love, Love on the Brain, The Monster, Don't Stop the Music, Only Girl, Desperado, Work, Rude Boy, Needed Me, Pour It Up, Towards the Sun, and Man Down. Lastly, I said some of Beyonce's songs that I know are Say My Name, Crazy in Love, Countdown, Run the World, Irreplaceable, Love on Top, Formation, Brown Eyes, Naughty Girl, Beautiful Liar, Partition, and Dance for You. Mike clapped as Alyssa kept listing the songs. They both laughed and applauded each other. In a bid to continue the conversation, I asked Mike about the things he likes and the things he dislikes. He said he liked people that are honest, truthful, hardworking, and open-minded. He said he hates laziness, dishonesty, and lies. When he finished talking about his likes, he asked me about my likes and dislikes too. I said I like almost everything he said he likes and dislikes. I told Mike that I was not wrong the other time when I said that we have a lot of things in common. I said it's difficult to believe that we can have so much in common on meeting for the first time. Why did you say you hate dishonesty? Has anyone broken your heart before? He said he used to have a girlfriend when he was in high school. He said we were in the same class and he loved her very much. He said she started acting the other way when they left school. He said she started ignoring his calls, and she was caring as she was when they were in college. He said at that point, he knew someone else has snatched her from him. He said he had no other option than to break up with her. He said it was very painful because she was the first girl he would ever fall in love with. Oh, that said, Alyssa said. It's all right. Mike replied. So, did you date anyone else after she broke up with you? I asked Mike. Mike said he hasn't gone into a relationship since then. He said he has been focused on his work and his family. He said he doesn't want another distraction. So you mean women are a distraction? I said. Mike said some women are a distraction because they are not honest. He said they wouldn't love a man the way he loves them. He said there are also many other reasons why he has decided to stay away from having a relationship. Alyssa said she wants to know the reasons. Mike said he just wants to concentrate on his job and his family. He said he wants to be able to save up so that he can achieve his aim of becoming a computer engineer. Alyssa said, wow, that's fine. She asked Mike if he would consider going into a relationship if he finds someone that is honest. Mike said it's a probability. Tell me about your love life too, Mike asked me. I have never been into a relationship deeply like you. I had a very close friend in high school that people used to think we were dating. We were very close but we were not in any relationship. At that point, I knew had Mike where I wanted him. I knew I could do anything I wanted with him, but I wanted to take her time and see where the conversation will lead to. So, how have you been coping since you broke up with your girlfriend? Mike said I have been coping well. Mike understood what I meant by the question. He knew I wanted to ask if he has been having sex since he left his girlfriend, but he decided to play along. He wanted me to say it directly. I know he has been coping well. But, how has he been coping with lack of sex, or does he have a sex partner? Mike smiled. He was happy because he heard what he wanted to hear from me. Mike said he doesn't have a sex partner. He said he has been able to stay away from sex since he and his girlfriend broke up. I smiled and told Mike that I admire his courage. I said it's not easy to stay away from sex that long, especially having sex before. Mike also wanted to know about my sex life. Tell me if you have ever had sex before. Mike said since I said she hasn't had a deep relationship, he was curious to know if I have gotten down with someone. I said I have gotten down many times with my high school friend even though we weren't dating. I excused myself to get a drink for Mike. At that stage, both Mike and I were already in the mood to get down with each other. When I got up, Mike couldn't take his eyes off me as I walked to the kitchen. I realized that Mike's eyes were fixated on me, so I started walking seductively to draw Mike's attention. When I entered the kitchen, Mike thought to himself that that was the perfect opportunity. He needed to have sex with me. I picked a drink from the fridge and went to the kitchen to pick a cup. While I was walking to the kitchen, Mark stood up and trailed me. He stood at my back, but I did not know because I was pouring iced teas into a cup. While I was pouring iced tea into the cup, I felt Mike near me grabbing my butt. I knew it was Mike because we were the only ones in the house. I deliberately acted like I didn't know someone was at my back grabbing my butt. I was already in the mood, and I was enjoying what Mike was doing. Mike continued grabbing my butt. He was waiting for me to turn to him so that he could plant a kiss on my mouth. Immediately I turned back to see who was at my back. Mike planted a kiss on my mouth and smiled at me. At that stage, Mike and I were deep into each other. I pecked him many times in the kitchen, and he pecked me too. We continued to peck each other because we wanted to keep things simple. I led Mike back to my room and we continued our conversation. My conversation with Mike became more intimate. I was wrapped up in his arms while I continued to chat with him about his private life. Mike wouldn't talk for 2 minutes without giving a peck, and I was always ready to receive his peck. After about 3 hours of chatting and pecking, Mike told me he was leaving. He said his family would be waiting for him. I followed him to my gate and we kissed for the last time. It was an awesome experience for me. Since then, I have ordered more than 6 items. Most of the items are items that I do not need. I kept on ordering these items with the hope that Mike will be the one to deliver them. 6 months after, I have not been able to see Mike. I want someone to help me look for him. Someone to help me look for him. Someone to help me look for. Evan sat at the desk that was at the back of the class. No student was sitting beside or close to Evan. He just sat down on his own. He deliberately sat there because he was not interested in what Mr. Mike was teaching. He always finds her class very boring. If Evan had the chance, he would not even attend Mr. Mike's class. After Mr. Mike finished writing on the board, he turned to the class to explain what he wrote. But before the explanation of the note, he has a new student in his class that he wants to introduce. Mr. Mike told the class to listen up. He said he wants all of them to meet Leah. He told them Leah is a new student who just joined their school. He told them Edward came from New York. Evan and the whole class looked up at the new student who was standing close to Mr. Mike. When Mr. Mike noticed that he had the attention of all the students, he told me to introduce myself to the class. For a few seconds, I couldn't talk because I was shy. Mr. Mike told me that I have to be bold and courageous. After much persuasion from Mr. Mike, I began to introduce myself. I am 18 years old. I was born and raised in New York. I have a brother and a sister who are both in college. I came here because my father was transferred to this city, so we had to leave New York. I didn't want to leave New York, but since my parents were leaving, I had no option but to follow them. Mr. Mike told me that I will enjoy my stay in the school. He told me that many students in the school came from other states. After the introduction, Mr. Mike told me to find a seat. I looked everywhere but every seat had a student sitting on it. The only vacant seat was Evan's seat. Mr. Mike told me to go and sit close to Evan's. When I was making my way to the seat, some students were nodding in disapproval. They didn't want me to sit close to Evan, but there was no empty desk, so I had no choice but to sit close to Evan. When I sat close to Evan, I asked him why he was sitting alone. He said he likes sitting alone. He said students don't like sitting close to him because he likes sitting at the back. As soon as Leah took her seat, Mr. Mike started the explanation of the note that was on the board. After some hours, the school timekeeper ranged the bell for recess. Evan took his jacket and walked out of the class. As he was walking, he heard someone calling his name. He looked back and saw me. He was surprised to hear me calling his name. He walked back to where I was standing to listen to what I had to say. I told him that I just wanted to let him know that if everyone in the class decides not to sit close to him, I will continue to sit close to him. Evan was surprised that someone could show him love in a class that people used to stay away from him. He was very happy to hear what I said, to the extent that he pleaded with me that I should follow him to the school restaurant. I obliged. Evan and I went to the school restaurant and ate together. After 45 minutes, the bell was rung for the end of the recess. When Evan returned to class, he noticed that everybody in the class was looking at him. They were surprised how quickly he has bonded with Leah. Everybody in the class knew Evan as someone that was very quiet and reserved. They know him as someone that hardly talks in class. How he was able to quickly form a bond with a new student remained a mystery to them. A few minutes to the end of the day activities, Mr. Mike came to the class and informed us that the next day is Parents' Convention Day. He told us that our parents to attend the convention. He told us that any student that does not have any representative at the convention will be punished according to the constitution of the school. After disseminating the information, he told us that we can start going to our houses. When we went out of the class, Evan walked up to me. He asked me if my parents were going to attend the parents' convention. I told him that I was not sure if my parents were going to attend the convention, because I am not sure if they were aware. Evan said that is true. I told Evans that I will inform my parents when I get home. I told him that their attendance at the convention will be based on their availability the next day. I asked Evan if his parents were going to attend the convention. Evan said he is sure that his parent will attend the convention, because they have been told since 7 days ago. He said his parent had no excuse. I told Evans that I will be happy if Evan's parents show up because she will like to meet them. Evan promised to introduce me to his parents if they show up at the convention. Evan also said he will like to meet my parents if they show up at the parents' convention. I told him that I will personally introduce him to my parents if they eventually show up at the convention. Evan and I continued our conversation until we got to the motor park where we were to board the bus that will take us to our houses. I have had a great day with you, Evan said. Me too, I replied. We waved one other goodbye and each one of us entered different buses. When I got home, I told my parent that my school was going to hold a parent convention the next day, and the school told us that every student must be represented. My father said he doesn't know about it and he is not sure if he will be able to attend. I was not happy with my father's decision. I started persuading my father. I reminded him that I am a new student in the school and I do not want to be punished. I told my father that I don't want to set a bad record too. After much persuasion, my parents agreed that they will attend the convention. I jumped up in happiness and embraced my parents. I was very happy because I knew that I will be able to introduce my parents to Evan. The next day, I woke up very early and immediately went to the bathroom. I took my bath very quickly and put on my school uniform. When my father woke up, he was very surprised to see me in my school uniform as early as 6 a.m. "Why are you dressed up so quickly?" my father asked. I told him I woke up very early and I decided to get myself ready for school since I do not have any house chores to do. My father told me that I have to wait for him and my mother to take their bath. He said he will drive me to school himself. After about an hour, my parents were ready. My father called me from my room and told me to meet him in the car. I entered the car with my parents, and we drove off. 15 minutes later, we arrived at my school. The school security men led my parents to the convention ground while I was told to go to my class. When I entered the class, I met Evan at his usual seat. I went to Evan and greeted him. Evan responded and he noticed a great smile on my face. Evan asked me the reason for the smile. I told him that I was smiling because I was able to persuade my parents to attend the convention. On hearing that, Evan smiled also. I asked Evan if his parents were able to attend too. Evan said his parents were already at the convention ground. The convention lasted for 2 hours. Parents were briefed about their children's academic performance, and many other things. When the convention ended, we were allowed to go and see our parents for a few minutes. I took Evan to my parents. I told my parents that Evan is my classmate. I explained how Evan helped me settle down on my first day in school to my parents. My parents praised Evan and advised him to face his academics squarely and come out in flying colors. They told him he is free to visit me at our house whenever he wishes. Evan and I immediately left and ran to where Evan's parents were standing. Evan introduced me to his parents and told them how friendly I was. He told them how I accepted to sit close to him in class when everyone else didn't want to sit close to him. Evan's parents appreciated me and advised me to be serious with my academics. Evan and I introduced our parents to themselves. After the introduction, Our parents left and Evan and I walked back to our class. Our friendship continued to grow stronger. We became very close friends and we began to do everything together. Everybody in the school noticed how close Evan and I were. As days went by, Evan and I began to generate emotional feelings for each other, but none of us dared to express our feelings. My birthday was fast approaching, and I told Evan that I will want him to celebrate my birthday with me. I told him my friend Aurora will also join us in the celebration. I told him that the birthday celebration will hold in a public mall. I told him that my parents will be there too. On the day of my birthday, I called Evan to meet me at St. George Mall. I told him that my parents, Aurora and I will join him soon. Evan left his house and headed to St. George Mall. When he arrived at the mall, we were already there waiting for him. We welcomed him and he took his seat. There was a lot of food and drinks to eat. While we were eating, Evan and I couldn't take our eyes off each other. A few minutes after, I excused herself. I told them that I want to use the bathroom. When I entered the bathroom, I locked the door. After easing myself, I could not open the door because it was locked. I started screaming for help, but there was no help in sight. After waiting for minutes for me to return and I did not, Evan stood up to check up on me. When he got to the bathroom area, he started calling my name. I quickly replied as I was happy that help was in sight. "Where are you?" Evan asked. "I am in the bathroom. I have been trying to open the door, but it seems the door is locked." Evan came to the bathroom door and helped me open it. "Thank you very much," I said. I told him that I have been stuck in the bathroom since I left them. I hugged Evan passionately and kissed him. Evan kissed me back. It seems like the perfect opportunity, that both of us to have some intimate kissing. The kissing continued to the extent that we had to lock the door again so that passers-by would not see us. When my parents waited for some time without seeing Evan and me, they sent Aurora to go and check upon us. When she got in front of the bathroom, she heard whispering in the bathroom. She thought something was going on in the bathroom, so she quickly returned. When my parents asked about Evan and me, she told them that I was still in the bathroom while Evan is chatting with his old-time friend he met at the mall. We continued the sex till they both came. We quickly cleaned up and joined the rest of the people that have been waiting for us. I thought the outing was a perfect opportunity to know more about Evan. Most of the talk we usually had in school was not too deep. I didn't know about Evan's family background even though I have met his parents. I don't know his hobbies, his likes and dislikes, and many other things. "So tell me about your family," I asked. "I have a brother and a sister. Both of them are in college. My brother is studying physics while my sister is studying statistics. My brother is in his 3rd year in college, while my sister is in her 1st year. My father works as a doctor while my mother is a pharmacist." "That's impressive," I said. "So you are from a family of medical personnel. Tell me about your family too," Evan said. "I have 2 brothers. Both of them are out of college. My elder brother studied chemistry while my immediate brother studied economics. My father and my mother are lawyers." "Oh, good. So you are from a family of legal practitioners. I am sure you are also considering becoming a lawyer," Evan said. "Maybe," Leah said. "So tell me what your hobbies are." "I want to know them," Leah asked. "My hobbies are watching football, traveling, reading, and watching movies." "You said you like watching football. Which football team is your favorite?" Leah asked. "I love many teams, but Real Madrid is my favorite. I love Real Madrid Football Club because of Cristiano Ronaldo. He is a very good player, and a great goal scorer. I will name my male child after him because of the love I have for him. He is the reason Real Madrid won 3 Champions League consecutively. It is a feat that no other club has ever achieved." "So you said you love reading too. So tell me the types of books you have read." Evan said I have read many books. The books I love reading most are comics and sports books. I love sports books because they educate me on the current news in sports. I also love comic books because they make me laugh. I love reading comic books when I am alone and bored. They usually make me laugh, and make me forget that I am alone. They help me cope with boredom. Most times, I am always at home alone when I leave school. So I need something that will chase boredom away. That was what led me to comic books, and I have become a fan since then. So tell me about the types of books you like to read, Evan asked. Leah said, I love romantic books. I love a book that is filled with romance. I know you are romantic, Evan said. So tell me about your type of movies, Lisa asked. Evan replied by saying, I like comedy movies. I loved movies that will make me laugh and forget what I am going through at that particular time. So tell me about the types of your movie too, Leah asked. Leah replied by saying, I love romantic movies the same way I love romantic books. I am not a big fan of romantic movies because they make me emotional. Most times the movies are made excessively long so that viewers can continue watching them. I don't like them because the movies are designed to make people attached to them. If you start watching it, you wouldn't want to stop, and that's the way the movies are designed. As for me, I prefer comic movies that will make me laugh and forget whatever I am going through. You said you love listening to music, so let us talk about music, Leah said. Tell me the types of songs you listen to and your favorite artists. I am a big fan of R&B songs. I love R&B songs because they usually have a lot of strong lyrics. So tell me who your favorite artists are in the R&B category. Evan replied by saying, I follow a lot of artists in the R&B category. I love almost all of them, Leah said. Even if you love all of them, there are one or two of them that you will love more than others. Yes, that is true, Evan said. I think I love R. Kelly and Usher. Good, Leah said. Now, you have to list at least 15 songs of your favorites before I can agree that you are a big R&B fan. Okay, I agree. Let me begin with R. Kelly. Some of his songs that I know are I Believe I Can Fly, The Same Girl, It Seems That You Are Ready, I'm a Flirt, Down Low, Trapped in the Closet, If I Could Turn Back the Hands of Time, Fiesta, Sex Planet, I Wish, You Remind Me of Something and Half on a Baby. Now, let me move to Usher, Evan said. Some of his songs that I know are Yeah, My Boo, DJ Got Us Falling in Love. I Don't Mind, OMG, You Got It Bad, You Remind Me. Love in This Club, Confessions, Nice and Slow, Don't Waste My Time, No Limit, Lovers and Friends. You Don't Have to Call, and Bad Habits. Leah said, Now I agree that you are a big fan of R&B. Evan looked at Leah and laughed. Now, tell me about your favorite artist too, Evan asked. As for me, I am a big fan of Alicia Keys and Justin Bieber, Leah said. I love their songs so much. They always inspire me with their songs. Just like you said, it is your dream to watch a football match in Santiago. It is also my dream to meet Alicia Keys, Beyoncé, and Justin Bieber in person. Evan laughed and said, I know you will meet them soon. I am also giving you the assignment you gave me, Evan told Leah. You are also going to mention 15 of Alicia Keys, Beyoncé, and Justin Bieber's songs for me to accept that you are a big fan of them. Leah laughed and said, I accept the challenge. Leah said, some of Alicia Keys' songs that I know are If I Don't Get You, No One, My Boo, Girl on Fire, Falling, Empire State of Mind, You Don't Know My Name, Try Sleeping with a Broken Heart, A Woman's Worth, Gramercy Park, This Girl Is on Fire, Brand New Me, Superwoman, We Are Here, Show Me Love, and Wasted Energy. I am impressed, Evan said. But you have to list Justin's and Beyoncé's songs before I give you your award. Okay, Leah said. Leah said, I know a lot of Justin's songs because he is from the younger generation. I will mention more than 20 of his songs. Okay, I am listening, Evan said. Leah said, Justin Bieber's songs that I know are Nothing Like Us, Monster, Love Me, That Should Be Me, Never Say Never, One Less Lonely Girl, As Long As You Love Me, 10-0 Hours, Off My Face, What Do You Mean, All I Want for Christmas Is You, Lonely, Intentions, Baby, Ghost, Stuck With You, Beauty and a Beat, Boyfriend, Too Much, Peaches, and Stay. I know a lot of songs that Beyoncé sang too because she inspires a lot of young girls like me. A lot of young girls like me look up to her and want to achieve what she has achieved. She is a perfect definition of what a 21st century woman should be. Some of her songs that I know are Bills, Crazy in Love, Say My Name, Single Ladies, Run the World, Brown Skin Girl, Love on Top, Listen, Brown Eyes, Formation, Already, Naughty Girl, Partition, Dance for You, The Best Thing I Ever Had, Drunk in Love, Lose My Breath, Cater to You, Soldier, Baby Boy, Party, and Halo. Wow, Evan said. Now I believe that you are a fan of these artists you have mentioned. I hope you get to see them very soon. Thanks, Leah replied. I hope you also fulfill your dream of watching Real Madrid live at the Santiago Stadium very soon. They ended their conversation and every one of them left the gathering. When Aurora saw Leah the next day, she asked her what happened between her and Evan in the bathroom. Leah was shocked. She started thinking with her whether Aurora saw what happened in the bathroom. But she denied it and told Aurora that nothing happened.
I'm Stephanie. I live in law with my parents. They were everything to me until I met Jude, my new boyfriend. I love him so much, I don't want to get separated from him never and ever. I met Jude a few days after my parents and I moved to La because my father had just been transferred to lead a branch of the stockbroking company he works for in our old city of residence. At first, I didn't buy the idea because I would have to lose all my friends and, most importantly, my plans to get back at Truce, my first boyfriend. Truce was 3 years my senior, but our relationship was delicate. I felt safe whenever I was with him. He was an honest guy, classy and straightforward before everything changed. He was the head of the football team then, and I was just a girl on the cheerleading team. My parent knew about my relationship with Truce, and I don't think they were happy about it. My father didn't really act up, but my mom, let's just say she was acting like a typical mother who thinks her child isn't in safe hands, would do. I really appreciate their concerns, but I thought Truce wasn't that bad. Truce did visit my place from time to time, and he's always welcomed. Truce, who had no other objectives, don't waste time in the living room. We always head straight to my bedroom, you know. I was the lousy one. I screamed a lot and said so many naughty words. I think my parents heard but weren't bothered, while Truce, on the other hand, just remained cool. I did think I didn't satisfy him, but he never said that. What else can I ask for, you'll say? Moreover, my parents were busy individuals. That hasn't changed a bit anyways. They traveled on business trips a lot. I frequently followed Truce out to places or clubs. Most of them weren't so cool, but I didn't care. I felt safe with Truce. He was like my big brother. Though still against my parents' counsel, my association with Truce was perfect until that fateful night, one of the nights my parents went on their business trips as usual. Truce came to my place. As usual, he called on me, and as I was dressing up, he bumped in and met me not fully dressed. He took a long gaze at me from the head down. I noticed this, so I stopped dressing. I know I have a good shape. Assuming the mirror was lying to me, people say I took after Maya and my mom. She's hot. I've not gotten all those curves, and the 2 babies on my chest are not fully grown, but I had potentials. Truce kept admiring me. His mouth was gaping up. El could tell he wanted to have me, but I was teasing him. I hurried up with my dressing. I noticed he was hard, but he kept his cool. I smiled. To satisfy his lust, I kissed him passionately and whispered to his ear when we returned. We found our way to his motorcycle outside. It wasn't like those pretty bikes in Hollywood movies, but it rocks for a high school student to have his own bike. He started the cycle, and I jumped on it from behind. I held him by the waist as he zoomed off. We stopped in front of a club. This one was new. We had been to different clubs repeatedly, but not this one. I started getting uncomfortable. I looked at Truce's face, and he smiled back at me. I gulped in a handful of saliva purposefully to show my discomfort, but his emotion didn't really change. Then he came close to me as if he was going to hug me and whispered to my hearing something I never forgot: "This is where I really belong." Had I known, I would have taken to the heel, but I remained stubborn despite my instincts. Let's just assume I love being gullible, at least for that time or for the worse my whole life. My life is about to change for good on the positive part, but looking at that situation, things didn't go as planned. Well, I never had any plan, Truce planned it all. This was the day I will never forget. This was the day that changed my family's life. My father took that gig in law even though he was doing just fine here. My mom thought leaving was the best too, at least she would avoid shame, and it was depression for me on my side. I remembered vividly after that night, I said to myself, never will I date any guy until the end of high school. That didn't last much. Jude came into the picture earlier than the end of high school. Maybe I can't be trusted with my own words either. My emotion got the best of me, and I love it. Truce placed his hands around my neck as we walked towards the bouncer. I was a lot shorter than him, but I pretended to be cool with it. He started muttering some jokes that I found not funny anymore due to my current situation but continued credulous. When we got to the bouncer, I became the stranger. It was as if he had known the bouncer longer than I knew my mom. There was great chemistry between the big guy and Truce. He allowed us in without asking for any ID. Funny, right? I know it is a culture for bouncers to ask for IDs, but this time was different. My mind flashed back to when we first met after a football game against the other best team in town, my then high school team's archenemy Oaks Christian. As the team's captain, Truce got injured early in the game. He could not proceed. He was stretched out of the playing zone, and since I was the youngest in the cheerleading team, I basically did not cheerlead at all. I was more like the errand girl in the group. I got the first aid box and walked reluctantly towards the team's captain. No one stopped me, not even the teachers. Everyone kept looking at the brave small girl walking towards the biggest boy in school. I have the skills since I was part of the Red Cross community in my junior school. I tended to his wound and made him very comfortable. Then I saw a smile on his face. I think he was satisfied with my services. He said, "I am Truce Dempsey. What is your name?" I can't believe my ears. Almost confused, I replied, "I am Stephanie Brown." Then he said, "Will you go have coffee with me tomorrow at the cafe?" Somebody hit me. The biggest boy in high school just asked me out. I carefully said, "Yes, I would love to have a cup of coffee." That was just 3 months ago from this fateful day. I thought I knew him, but that night I realized I didn't know him that much. I wanted to cry already. We entered the club. Almost everybody recognized Truce. I was surprised. How long has he been visiting this place? It was as if he was there the night before. He introduced me to everyone. The guys were top-notch, and the girls were so hot. Well, I'm the youngest, and I had potentials. The ladies are sexy to behold, and their curves are heaven. I felt like holding their 2 babies in my hands. I felt like an opposite gender by gazing at them. I noticed all the details they possessed. Before getting caught off guard, I quickly brought out my phone and started watching some videos. While I was busy with my phone, the ladies were whispering and laughing. I think they were talking about me, but who cares? I shrugged it off as I tried to find out what the boys were up to. Those guys were really planning something big or maybe crazy. Truce looked at my side from time to time and winkled at me at every instance. Everything there was kind of creepy. The noise was so loud like every other club. The bartenders were doing their job, but 10 people were in attendance. All are familiar individuals, with me being the only stranger. The guys are done with their presumed board meeting, and each guy went for their girls. Truce came to me and asked me what will I love to take. This wasn't the best moment to get drunk. I replied, "Water is fine." He looked at me in disappointment, but I didn't care at this moment. I repeated I would love cold water. He stood up, went straight to the bar and got himself a few beers, and got me 2 chilled bottles of water from the big freezer beside the bar. I sipped my water while every other person was marrying. The party moved from seriousness to naughtiness. The other girls are doing their thing before I could get my head around what is going on. A certain girl was really riding on a guy's lap so hard. Looking at his face, you can tell he will soon go. The girl was so good. Several hours had gone, a lot of adult scenes. All the guys present had wet themselves except Truce, who was on his 6th bottle of beer. Then, here came the moment they had been waiting for. I was here to be initiated as Truce's new girlfriend, and I knew nothing about it. Dave, Truce's closest pal in the clique and undeniably the gang leader, broke it to me. I would be stripped naked, and all the guys will take turns on me. I fired back at the idea, and they all laughed. Lucy, the sexiest, curviest, and most endowed of the other 4 girls, said, "It's the ritual only once, and you're welcome to the club, baby." I tried to fight my way out of the club. The ladies stripped me off my clothes, and the guys started dancing around me. I felt ashamed, and I cried. I was let out to go, and Truce made me go home all by myself that night. That night, I will never forget. I wept all night, my face swollen. Truce didn't call or check on me. Even without saying it, I knew it was over. The following day, I got dressed for school. On getting to the school environment, everyone's eyes were locked on me. There were whispers and disgusting faces everywhere. It was only me that was left to wonder what was going on. I got to my class, and the atmosphere was still the same. I sat on my chair, still thinking about what happened last night. Kathy and Elle, my 2 friends, came towards me. They told me about a video of me dancing naked with some unrecognized boys posted on the school website the previous night. What? It was filmed. I said that to myself, but it felt as if I was shouting out loud. No, I am doomed, I softly said to myself. They tried to ask me about what really happened, but I was too down to give a response. Stephanie Brown. That's the principal's voice from the school speaker. You're wanted in my office now. I stood up from my seat. It looked like the whole world was upon my head. I wanted to melt down. I dragged my feet to the principal's office. My mom and dad were already in his office. He asked me what really happened. I was too ashamed to say anything. My dad couldn't look at my face, and my mom was sobbing silently. The principal asked me to go to the reception. A few minutes later, my parents came out and said to me, "You've been expelled, let's go home." I busted into tears. That was the quietest day in our home. My dad is naturally reticent, but my mom was gratuitously silent. I was in my room with my head deep in the soft pillow crying softly. A few hours later, my parents came in with 2 slices of bread, a plate of fried eggs, and a glass of juice. They sat beside me on the bed, and I could feel Mom rocking my leg. I sat down with my head bowed in shame. They comforted me before my dad revealed that he got a gig in LA and would take the chance. My mom went along with the plan. Deep in my thought, I was visualizing how I was going to get my revenge at Truce. I really don't want to leave, not now. My friends were the best. I didn't want to be separated from them, but I understood that decision was difficult for my parents. They took it because of me. I appreciated their effort. Everyone went along with the idea of leaving everything behind. Later in the evening, my friends came to our place. I updated them. They were initially reluctant. Soon they found out it was for the best. Everyone saw that as a good plan except me. I wanted to get revenge on my mess. They quickly jumped into helping me pack my stuff and assisted my parents in a few rounds. We resumed the journey very early the following day. None of our neighbors was out. I am sure my dad couldn't see the road clearly, but it was his braveness for me. We got to lie before none, moved into our new apartment, and everyone opened a new chapter in their lives. All this just because of my foolishness. My mom got me registered in a new school. The process was easy. I had good grades, and my viral video hadn't reached LA yet. That was a significant relief. I started attending class with the immediate effect of forgetting the past as soon as possible. I was a loner for the first few weeks because I didn't know who to trust anymore. Everyone tried associating themselves with the newbie, but I think I was getting better at avoiding people. That was my newest superpower. Then Abby came into the picture. She had been sitting behind me all semester, and I didn't even notice her. Wow, this girl is good. She talked to no one, and no one talked back to her. She is always reading a novel or writing something no one cared about except her. Her diary is filled with posters of aliens and spaceships. Weird, right? Help me pick my pen. It is between your legs. That voice was new. I never perceived that, and it was 3 months I resumed. I looked back. It was Abby. Babe, she's like an angel. Her lips were white, and the wet lips melted perfectly on them. I was still fantasizing about her when I heard, "Will you please help me with the pen?" "Oh, I'm sorry," I replied. "Here it is." She then raised her eyelid, trying to make me look back. Looking at me from the opposite direction was the class nerd, Jude. Jude is cute. He has a baby face and is the best student in class, but he is not sporty. This boy can't even ride a bicycle, nerd. Abby continued, "He has been looking at you since the professor introduced you to the class. I think he's into you." Why is Abby talking to me? This is strange. I would have been comfortable with this supposed discussion, but he'll be saying anything to me. She introduced me to a stalker. I took it as a setup, faced front, and gave Jude a weird face. Jude looked away with a smile on his face. It was as if his mission was accomplished. I finally noticed him. I felt unsafe and more comfortable. I rushed out to the restroom to calm myself a bit. I entered the classroom and couldn't wait for the bell. Immediately, I heard it. I carried my bag and disappeared from the premises. The following day at school, I got my stuff from my locker, and Jude came by trying to initiate some conversation. I didn't respond to his calls, though he sounded soft. I could pick he couldn't hurt a fly by day. Not him, not now, and not anytime soon. Abby whispered to my ear in the class, "Give him a chance. You won't regret it this time. Trust me." I looked back in awe. Did she know about it? Was she there? I felt unsecured. I understand how people that had been treated bitterly act, and I could tell you were once a victim, the soft voice continued whispering. I sighed with relief. At least she didn't know about it, I said to myself. What did you care? I whispered back. She smiled and replied, "Here he comes." I turned around and lo, Jude. "Hi, Abby," he greeted. "You good?" Abby responded. I think these two know themselves a lot. I later found out that they are twins, and my name is the leading topic in their house. Jude started with his speech. He wasn't even concentrating. My eyes were locked on his. Can you hear me? Jude asked sharply. Yes, I responded in an apt. Will you go watch a movie with me tomorrow night and maybe get a drink when returning? Is that a date? I asked in return. I guessed, he said with a tone of doubt. Okay, this once, I replied. I couldn't believe I had just said that. That slip of tongue gave me the sweetest experience to date. After the movie night, we started going out. My parents knew about him, and they were happy that I had moved on. I couldn't believe myself, I was reborn. Jude brought me back to life. Unlike Truce, my parents were delighted with my relationship with Jude. God, this guy is well-cultured, a very respectful kid. His weird twin sister became my best and only friend in school. Babe, this girl can talk, only when she's not in the class. I found out she's the lousy type, and Jude is the timid one. That is the opposite in school. Their father works at NASA. That explained the alien and spaceship posters on Abby's diary. Their mom sells flowers in a plant store. Those two are really close. They shared everything without a tip of jealousy. They even shared my time among themselves. They made La my new home. My relationship with Jude was perfect, but we haven't gotten intimate yet. Jude said he could wait. And I really love this guy, but Truce's memory was well seated in my cerebrum. I could recall everything as if it was yesterday. Over a year now, my relationship with Jude Wilson was more pleasant than the early morning sun. I could believe what was happening. It was as if I was in a dreamland. Mr. and Mrs. Wilson are the best. They treat me as one of their own. Brad was the naughty little brother. He is tough to please. I think we will get along. Brad is addicted to his video game. I deduce that it might be natural to him that the real life. Unlike my parents, the Wilsons are very predictable. Mrs. Wilson is always available, but Mr. Wilson barely comes home. Their stamina is kind of regular. Everyone knows what to do with time. Everything with the Wilsons is routine. I like this home, and I fit in comfortably. Recently, my parents even allowed me to spend weeks with the Wilsons. It is a home away from home. The Wilsons are not as boring as they look. This person can party, they love traveling, and even have movie nights every Friday. We are now in our finals. Prom is in a few weeks. Jude seems to be very busy recently. He is the valedictorian, and as the school president, he is planning the best prom yet. Abby wasn't helping her twin brother. I wasn't surprised. She's good at ignoring people, and Jude was okay with it too. I really miss Jude. This is the first time in a long time Jude wasn't really available, but Abby was making up for his brother. I had plans too. My mom and I had been visiting wear stores and boutiques. As the first lady of the prom night, I ought to look my best. I didn't really know my mom was good at selecting dresses until now. All my life, she had been wearing office wears. Initially, I didn't trust her choice, but in time, babe, mom was good. She got me new pairs of heels. I appreciated her, and I gave her arguably the longest hug I have given her. She smiled in satisfaction. Tonight is the prom. Everything was going on fine with me, Jude, Abby, and my parents. Jude called me as usual. I understood he was trying to make up for his absence, but the information was different this time. He said he had provided an Uber for the night. That was thoughtful of him. I informed my dad about the news since he promised me the day before to transport me to the prom center. My dad was okay with it, and he wished me good luck. Braun. That was the doorbell. My mom got the door. Baby, it is Jude, she shouted. I came down the stairs. I was walking like an angel. I wasn't perfect with heels, but try not to rush myself. Jude was in his tuxedo. He looked up to take his queen. He was smiling, and I was smiling. My dad looked so pleased, and my mom joined her hands together, raised towards her chin. I am not getting married yet, I snapped at the duo. I met up with Jude at the end of the stairs. Jude whispered, I love you, beauty. I waved my hands at my parents as we walked towards the black SUV parked in front of the lawn. The driver was in a black suit. The driver turned. He was wearing a black sunglass. The face looked familiar, but how did I know a bearded young man? The driver removed his glasses, and lo, it was Truce. Truce. I can't believe myself. I ran into the house and straight to my room upstairs. What should I have done? My old boyfriend, who tarnished my image, is here to pick me on my prom night. Should I go in the Uber or stay home? What did you think? What did you think? What did you think?
The taxi driver who loved me. Hi, today I will tell you a story that taught me a lot of lessons. The most important one was that sometimes what may seem true is not true, and we shouldn't be so fast into thinking assumptions about people. My name is Carol. I am 16 years old. I live far away from my parents. Because of my school, I live alone in a small apartment. Well, not really alone because I have a cat with me and her name is Sam, and she means the world to me. We do everything together and go to every place together. She is my family here when I am feeling down. I play with her and all the sadness just simply fades away, and it's like she's an antidepressant to me. I don't make many friends, and it's really difficult being alone. My parents knew that, therefore they gave Sam to me as a gift. It took me some time to adjust to the new place, but I got used to it. There is this taxi driver who is a lot older than me. He also lives somewhere near my house, and he usually drives around the area. And the thing that I wanted to tell you about him is that he is in love with me. Well, at least that's what I used to believe. He is a really nice person. I had seen him a couple of times in the street and after school. We talked for a while and I realized that he is in love with me. He is always so nice to me, and sometimes too nice. It made me a bit suspicious about him and his intentions. Being a girl of my age who lives alone, I was a bit careful about these things. I had been in his taxi several times and nothing wrong happened. One day I went to the market to buy some cat food for Sam and some things for my apartment. I took Sam with me because I never leave her alone. I took the bus to get to the market because it was really far away from my house. When I got to the market, I bought cat food and other household accessories that I needed, and after shopping for a while, I got really tired and thought, I might eat something because my house is very far away from the market. It would take a lot of time to get there, so I looked for a restaurant and had a meal there. I was so busy shopping and doing other things that I completely forgot that it's gotten so late, so I went to the bus stop. After that, unfortunately, I just missed the bus by a minute. The next bus was going to come in an hour. I waited at the bus station for almost half an hour with my cat, and still half an hour was left. The time was moving so slowly. Seconds seemed like hours. There were some passengers waiting at the bus stop. One of them told me that sometimes the next bus takes about 2 hours to get at the stop. And that got me really worried because the sun had almost set. There was no sign of the bus, and after some time, a taxi stopped in front of me. When the window got rolled down, it was the same man about whom I was telling you guys about. He told me that he had completed his shift and was heading home, and coincidentally, he saw me at the bus stop since his home was near mine. He suggested me to get into the car with him and he would drop me off at my home. I got really worried about what to do because it was getting so late and still no sign of the bus, and I was afraid that he might do something to me. After thinking for a while, I decided to get into the car with him. I got in the back seat and he started the car. It was a long journey in front of us, so we started to ask questions about me and we started talking. During our conversation, he was being a bit flirty and was staring at me the whole time from the back of the mirror of the car. Honestly, guys, I was a bit scared too, but I had Sam with me, so I overcame the fear and tried my best not to let him know that I was scared. By looks, he looked like a decent man. Something wrong wasn't expected from him. But still my mind was creating different situations about what could go wrong. And guys, there were a lot of things that could have gone wrong in that ride. We were halfway into our journey that he suddenly stopped the car and looked at me. Imprecise, he was looking at my breasts. Then he bent his neck and he tried to grab my chest. Well, at least that's what I thought he was doing. But that didn't happen. I had Sam in my hands. At that moment, I had no idea what to do. I was in severe shock at the moment, so I closed my eyes. But turns out he was picking up Sam, and I thought he was going for my breasts. I got really shocked and frightened at that moment, and he realized that. He felt so guilty and apologized to me for grabbing Sam like this. But then he explained why he did that. When he was young, he had a cat just like Sam. He showed me her pic and the resemblance between his cat and my cat were uncanny. He told me that he loved her so much and told me all the stories about his cat and all the adventures him and his cat had. I asked him where his cat was now and what happened to his cat. This question brought a huge deal of sorrow on his face, which gave me the answer to my question. Then he told me that once he was going someplace and he had a really big accident. The cat was with him in the accident, and unfortunately, the cat couldn't make it out alive from the accident. He was also really injured, but he was more sad about the loss of his cat than his own injury. I got so sad after hearing all this because I couldn't even imagine what I would do if something like this would happen to Sam, because she is my everything, my whole world. After that, we talked for the rest of our journey, and we became good friends too. Though I love Sam a lot, I told him that he could play with her for some time if he wants to, because I had an idea of the pain from which he was going through. He told me that it's a really nice gesture from my side, but he couldn't take Sam away from me. He said he didn't want me to go through what he went through when he lost his cat. We didn't realize in our talking that we had reached home. I wanted to talk to him more, but I guess that was it. He dropped me off at my apartment. I offered to pay for the journey, but he didn't take a single penny. I even tried forcefully to give him the money, but he didn't take it. So I thanked him a lot and went inside my apartment. He also went to his house after that. When I was about to sleep, I realized that he was only looking at my cat and he was only being nice because he was a nice person. He didn't have any wrong intention. At that moment, I reflected upon how wrong I was and was really feeling ashamed for thinking this wrong about such a nice person. I wanted to tell him all this and what I thought about him and how wrong I was. I really wanted to apologize to him many times, but never got the courage to do so. We humans are really fast in judging people. We all are. We start making up assumptions about a person, that what type of person he or she is, and we stick with false assumptions, but when we realize that our assumptions are wrong, we are all left with nothing but guilt. That day, I learned an important lesson that is going to stick with me forever, which is we should never be so fast into making assumptions about people. We have to at least give them a chance to explain themselves. If you like my story, kindly like this video and tell me in the comment section what you think I should have done. Should I have told him or not telling him was a good decision? Also share any similar experience if something like this happened to you. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon.
As you already know through the first part of my story, my name is Carol, and just like every other girl my age would easily misinterpret and suspect kind gestures from male folks out there, it was somehow normal for me to suspect the taxi driver that showed me so much love. As a matter of fact, you can't really blame me. After numerous sexual assault attempts I've suffered from old people that are even related to me, I have grown up to suspect every male folk out there, especially in today's world. It seems nothing goes for nothing. Indeed, every act of kindness is suspicious. However, these reasons didn't in any way make me feel better. I still felt I owed the man an apology. Unfortunately, unlike other days, it was a little bit difficult to come across the taxi driver. Subconsciously, I was eager to see him again. Well, in one of the evenings after a stressful day at school, I decided to go out for a walk, and boom, we met. Actually, I couldn't really hide the excitement. It was too obvious judging from the way I reacted when he got out of the car and extended his hand for a handshake. I held on firmly to the hands and smiled back. After exchanging pleasantries, the first thing he said was that he bought a cat that's very similar to the one he lost in that fatal accident back then. He described how adorable the cat is and how much he wants me to see her for myself. Personally, I was happy for him. At least this new cat would help him get over the loss of the previous one. As funny as it might sound, I realized that all the while we were still holding hands, and he was gently caressing my palm in the process. I didn't want to make the mistake of misinterpreting his intentions once again, so I overlooked it. After telling me more about his new cat, he softly invited me to visit his place and see the cat for myself. I accepted with the condition that it would only be possible during the weekend or any day I'm less busy at school. Since I didn't have much to do in school that week, one of these days I later decided to pay the taxi driver a surprise visit. I got into his apartment, since the door was open, and I saw the cat lying down on the sofa. Just like he described her, she was the perfect beauty, and I couldn't help but play with the cat's fur. It was soft and awesome. The cat, on the other hand, was staring at me with this confused face, and I couldn't help but smile back at her while whispering my name to her. After a few minutes, the taxi driver came in from the next room to meet us having our inaudible conversation, and burst into a loud laughter. In no time, he jumped on the sofa and was struggling to gain the cat's attention, but it was as if the cat already fell in love with me. She fixed her gaze on me and kept meowing in a sweet manner whenever I made a statement, as if she was also giving me replies. Before I knew what was happening, I've spent hours playing with the cat and the taxi driver, and it was already too late for me to go back home. The taxi driver noticed that I was nervous, so he promised that he'd drop me at home and that I should not worry. Although I'm someone that does not like disturbing or stressing another person too much, I had no choice but to allow him to take me home, considering how unsafe it was to go alone. In a flash, the taxi driver was already in his bedroom to wear his clothes and also pick the car key. In no time, we started the trip, and this time around, it was not really a boring journey compared to the previous ones I had. The truth is that by now, he had already gained my trust through his actions. So we were more like friends now. He told me a lot about himself, and I felt I'd be considered boring if I didn't also contribute to the list. I had to tell him how my parents never once allowed me to eat ice cream since, according to them, I'd get cough from cold. We laughed at the misconception about ice creams I grew up with. It was funny because ice cream is like every child's favorite food, whereas I never had the opportunity to taste it once. From the ice cream discussion, we started talking about school life during his days and how it is now. I noticed that the taxi driver slowed down and then branched into a parking space before stopping. On the left side of the road, I observed that the place was a market, and deep inside, I kept wondering why he stopped. I guess he also noticed that I was uneasy and decided to break the silence by saying, "Please, I want to get something from the market. I'll be right back." And then he winked at me. His winking was so bad it got me cracking up with laughter. In split seconds, the taxi driver was already back in the car, and somehow I was unsure if he was able to get whatever he went in to buy. With hands on his back, he said he had a gift for me, and that I should promise him that I won't reject it. I began to imagine what could possibly be in the gift he got for me. Sluggishly, I nodded in affirmation that I won't reject it. Well, even after agreeing to collect the gift, he still didn't allow me to see what was inside the bag. He stepped into the car and we continued our journey, but in silence. After some time, he stopped the car and came to the back seat where I'd been sitting all along, and then opened the bag slowly. Right inside, the surprise he got for me. A big, creamy, mouth-watering ice cream. As a matter of fact, it was really the best surprise I could get. I watched the ice cream, fascinated, and it actually made me realize that dreams do come true. I couldn't even wait for him to hand it over to me. It was hard to resist the urge of hurriedly dragging the parcel from his hands. He smiled as he watched me eat the ice cream with all amount of seriousness. Since the car was already too hot, the ice cream started melting and I had to eat it faster and rapidly. With the way I was devouring the ice cream, the taxi driver had to promise me that he'd get me more next time. He turned over to the driver's seat and we continued the trip. All of a sudden, we heard a sudden bursting sound and he held the brake. After careful observation, he noticed that one of the tires actually picked up a sharp object and got deflated. It was actually frustrating because the whole unfortunate scenario happened in the middle of the road. Since the taxi driver is always going around with most of the repair equipment in the car, he got out and in no time was able to fix the tire issue with the spare he had. Well, although he tried repairing it, the car still needed the services of a professional. They had no choice but to manage. After adjusting the tire for some time, he started pumping air into the fixed one. This made a little disgusting noise, and I had to close my ears until it was over. Immediately, he was done. We continued our journey again, but before we could get to my apartment, we noticed that the taxi driver's cat that was with us all through the time we spent together was nowhere to be found. Our fear was that maybe we left her where the car crashed, and so I decided to join him in search of the cat. We got to where the car crashed earlier on, and we looked all around, but we found nothing. We got so disturbed and even had to enter the nearby woods, but our search was still futile. Then and there a thought came into my head, and I had to tell the taxi driver that maybe the cat had returned home to the house after they left her in the street. After saying that, we entered the car and headed back to the taxi driver's house to check if the cat was there. Luckily enough for us, at arrival, we saw the cat crying in the house. We both embraced her and kind of tried explaining how much we have looked for her. She stopped crying and kept rubbing her fur gently on us. By now it was already too late, and considering the condition of the car, I didn't want the taxi driver to risk anything just to drop me off, so I just asked him if I could sleep over that night at his place. Actually, I had so much confidence that nothing will go wrong, like I expected, and he agreed and said I could sleep with him and the cat together in the bed if I wanted to. The suggestion was okay with me, but I told him I had to take my bath first since the day's stress actually got me sweating profusely. He showed me his bathroom and I took my bath but had to wear the same clothes I wore before. I came back and laid down on the bed with him, and just a few minutes after we started discussing again, we suddenly heard a knock on the door. And since it was late in the night, we were both worried and scared. The first thought that came to my mind was if it was actually armed robbers. I was literally shaking in the bed. The taxi driver summoned up courage and opened the door, and right there were 2 policemen and my parents with them. According to them, they'd been looking for me all day. I was so happy that my parents came to pick me up, but why they had come with the cops was something I didn't understand. The cops took the taxi driver, handcuffed him, and he was prosecuted and sent to jail. The cops thought that he actually did something bad to me, but I told them he was a good man and he had never done anything bad to me, but they didn't really believe anything I said. One of the cops kept saying that maybe the man had threatened me not to reveal the truth. He told my father that the taxi driver had done similar things in the past. Well, I don't really know how true that might be. All I knew was that he never hurt me in any way. After the taxi driver was sent to jail, I decided to take care of his cat and mine. I'm sure that's the least help I could render to him. But even with that, I'm still confused. I don't know what to do. Can I go to visit him in prison? I'm sure he'd be happy to see me, but I don't know if my parents would want me to do that. Or maybe I should just let things be, and after serving his jail time, he'll be released and I can hand over his cat to him and apologize for what he's gone through because of me. Please help me by commenting on how I should act now, because I don't know what to do next. You can also like the video and subscribe to our channel.
Like a bolt from the blues, it has happened. That the taxi driver who I was beginning to get fond of is no longer with me. I was not myself by the passing of each day. Oh my God! Examination was by the corner, and it seems as if I don't give a damn. I couldn't just help it because every one of my thoughts was tailored toward the good moments I had with the taxi driver to the moment he was taken away from me. The more the days went by, the more scared I became. I was torn between 2 worlds. One filled with everything I could ever dream of, love, value, passion. The other, forbidden love, punctuated by dangerous choices. Finally, one day, I decided to visit him, irrespective of what the consequences may be. Because since after I learned my lessons on the disadvantage of judging or doing things based on assumption, I started to take bold steps and good risks. So I got dressed in my skimpy skirt and a top and immediately made my way to the jail. On my way, I was lost in thought on what could be his condition, now that I've not seen him for 2 months. Who knows how he looks now? Can he still recognize me? Ugh, I just hope I can still see him. Amidst my fears, the one that fears me most was if my taxi driver friend would permit me to come close to him, because it's obvious that he was sent to jail because of me. That look of guilt was all over me, just like a rat that was caught stealing. "Gosh, I've passed the jail!" I screamed at the taxi driver that was driving me. "Are you stupid?" I rudely screamed out of annoyance. "You've passed the jail!" "Oh, sorry, ma'am. I was expecting you to tell me you want the light." The innocent taxi driver responded in a polite manner. Then I got conscientious of myself. This is not me. I was overreacting and transferring aggression because of what I'm about to face. Then I apologized to him and asked him to take me back to the jail, which we have already passed. He gave a slight sigh and headed to the roundabout to take an upturn back to the jail. At last we got there, and I alighted immediately in a hurry, heading to the gate when the taxi driver yelled out, "Madam, you've not paid me." I immediately came back and paid him in a hurry. Am I having a psychological problem or what? What's really happening to me? I seem not to understand myself anymore. Immediately, I got to the jail. By this time, I became intensively nervous. I got this feverish feeling all over me, causing me to shiver. Immediately, I saw the policeman walking up and down. I had to compose myself immediately. I got to the table where I was queried of who I came to see and who he is to me. Remember, I've decided to deal with pretense. So the true nature of what I felt for the taxi driver made me want to say something beyond a friend, but I sensed it could complicate issues as my parents are already involved in the case. So I just told them that he was just a friend. After the interrogation, I was asked to register my details, which I did without compulsion. I was taken to another room where I waited for him to be brought out. Oh, my heart skipped a beat as I looked at my friend. He has really changed a lot. His beard has grown so long and bushy. He used to be lean, tall, and handsome. But right now all those physical appearances are thrown to oblivion. How I wish I could find this thin air where they disappeared to, so I can restore them back. How impossible it is right now. Tears dripped down my cheek as I hugged him passionately, not letting him go. I felt like kissing away his tears, which were flowing like a river. His became uncontrollable that I had to instantly be strong for him. Suddenly, every fear that I had about him disappeared. He is too innocent and calm to hurt a fly. Talk more of committing a crime. I brought out my handkerchief and wiped away his tears. I promised him that I would do whatever it takes to see that he is out of jail. It's already been 2 months he's been in jail. Does it mean that nobody cares about him, and even his so-called uncle is not aware of his condition, for them to leave him like this? How have you been, dear? As you can see, I am fine, he responded with a smile, which I feel was not real. As I was about to ask him the next question in my mind, he continued, It has been hell here, not seeing you for months, Carol. I have lost all sanity, but thank God, now that I have seen you, I feel much better. Carol, eating has been difficult for me, but trust your presence have changed everything in my system. I felt pity for him because I am certain that his suffering is as a result of our friendship. His words were so passionate that they swam into my marrows and sprouted out the feelings I had for him. I must be honest, although I don't know if it is a wise feeling, but by this time I felt like kissing him, especially those tears that kept dropping down his cheeks. I felt this magnetic force pushing my lips to his as we stood opposite each other with the table serving as a barrier. But then I gained this consciousness again to discontinue the action. Then he held my hands across the table. Carol, he called, I need you to do me a favor if you really value me and want the best of my happiness. This is the only thing that can bring me out of this jail alive. What is that? I responded without mincing words. I need you to go to my uncle's house. Take my house keys and get me the pictures of my cat. You know I can't be with my cat here. I just want to take a glance at it once more. She is the source of my joy. Please help me. I understood his plight, because my own cat has always been an antidepressant for me. That is how comforting cats can be, and true to the fact, at a time like this, Taxi Driver's cat is the only one that can help him overcome his depression. Do I really have an option? Not now. I promised to get to his uncle's house, collect his keys, and get the cat's pictures. Then I requested of his uncle's address, which he gave me. I hugged him and left for the mission. I headed immediately to Uncle Sam's house. On my way, I was still reflecting on what happened in there some minutes ago. That feeling that almost made me kiss him. Oh, it feels so good. Was this really out of pity, or was I just being real? I asked myself. Well, time will tell. Let's go complete this mission first. Locating Uncle Sam's house wasn't really that stressful because Taxi Driver has already showed me his house before. On getting to Uncle Sam's house, he was at the table munching some fruits. He gave me a warm welcome. As I delivered the message, he immediately abandoned the fruits and went into his room and came out almost in a jiffy. He said, "Let's go." Like a military man, I followed after him as we both marched down to the taxi driver's house like soldiers. That anyone who saw us coming need not to be told that something was wrong. We arrived at the taxi driver's house, and as I was waiting to get the pictures from Uncle Sam, I spotted the cat running under the sofa. I was excited when I saw her, thinking she's going to smile at me, but she didn't. I tried to grab her, but she is very far from my reach. This attracted the help of Uncle Sam. He pushed her several times, and I finally got the cat. But while he pushed her, I also found a strange paper under the sofa, a paper with names and X's. X. I had to hide the paper from Uncle Sam, and I secretly left with it. After some minutes, Uncle Sam came out with a bag. He handed over the bag to me. He said that the bag contains all the pictures, but I shouldn't open it for any reason. All I need to do is hand it over to the taxi driver. This bag will probably take the taxi driver out from the jail, he warned. Now I'm beginning to sense something fishy about the whole scenario. I was so curious about the bag and even more curious about the strange paper I found under the sofa. So I decided to take the risk. When I arrived home, I opened the strange letter I found, and guess what I found? A paper with 7 names, and all of them were crossed with an X as they were eliminated. And in the end, I saw my name, Carol. And my name looks like it was waiting to get eliminated, or what I can call the next in line. I was astonished at what I saw. Could this be true? May there be this mistake somewhere? Or it's certainly not my own Carol. There and then, my feelings about the taxi driver automatically changed. Does this mean that the cops were right when they said that the taxi driver has done this in the past? Maybe the taxi driver was trying to fool me to get me assassinated much later. Oops. Don't really know the thought to believe now. My head got heavy. But that's not really my problem now. My problem is what to do with this mysterious paper that I found my name on. I was confused on whether to send the letter to the police or keep it secret. It really took me the whole week to think through. Not until the weekend when I decided to handle it my own way. I know it's quite risky for me to take the paper to see the taxi driver. Perhaps I would question him about this, because my life is at risk too. On getting to the jail, the first guard I passed strangely watched me, and I was a bit nervous. But it didn't take long for me to compose myself again. When I got to the next guard, the policeman asked me what was in the bag, and I said only some pictures, and while he tried to take my bag and inspect it thoroughly, he was interrupted by his colleague's urgent call. I was glad I made it finally to see the taxi driver. I can feel this ecstasy all over him this time, not because he saw me, but because I came with the bag, and without responding to my greeting, he immediately took the bag and hid it behind his back. After that, the taxi driver became uncomfortable with my presence, that he asked me to go, and when I was about to go, I drew closer to him, and I said, "There's something But he didn't give me any space to talk, and he shut me up, and said that I need to start going. He stood up, holding his stomach, acting like one who is badly pressed and need to ease his bowels. Do I really have an option? I had to leave. But I became more and more confused as I stepped out of the prison gate. I went home straight, thinking, I can calm my nerves. I tried to sleep, but it was nowhere to be found. I lay on my bed, staring at the ceiling and thinking on what to do next. Yes, I got an idea. I think I should talk to Uncle Sam about the paper. It was already 10 p.m., but I don't give a damn of whose axe is to be gored. I need to get this issue in my heart settled once and for all. So I picked up my phone and I called him. But he asked me to come over somewhere close to taxi driver's house. Without a second thought, I went straight because I need to offload the burden. When I got there, I noticed Uncle Sam was somehow drunk, and he asked me to join him on the sofa for a drink. I vehemently refused, although I'm almost 18, but I am not still allowed to drink, and I don't want to. I'm a girl on a mission, so I don't need anything to distract me. But he insisted and tried forcing the drink into my mouth. At the same time, he held my throat, pushing me to the wall and started muttering some words to me. You are a smart and brave girl. You did a great job. You're my hero. Blah, 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 blah. I couldn't take this anymore. Is this how to compliment someone? I pushed him away and took to my heels. Of course, I still kept my secret. The confusion this time is unfathomable, because I don't know why someone will be praising me, but yet holding my throat as though I'm fighting over something with him. That's quite ironical. I really need answers to these questions in my mind. I neither know who to believe now or who to confide in now. Should I go to the police or keep the secret and strange paper with my name still waiting to get crossed? I need your advice on what to do before I go nuts or make the wrong decision. And remember, if I delay, who knows the deadline for my elimination? It may be this last moment you are reading this. So do not hesitate to save a soul now. It was a very beautiful garden, well decorated with my best flowers, the roses. I was lying so comfortable in the arms of the taxi driver, and the next minute, he disappeared into thin air. I searched and searched for him that I almost felt bad, but suddenly I heard a sound with someone closing my eyes with his soft palm. I needed no prophet to tell me that it was the taxi driver. He appeared from the second tree. Then we started playing hide and seek in the garden as the trees smile at us and the birds whistle their melodious love song into our ears. For the second time, I didn't want to let him go. Suddenly, my alarm brought me back to reality. That made me realize that it was only a dream. Why can't this dream just continue? I cried. But then, how can I be playing so insecure with a man who has my name on his elimination list? Still on my bed pondering, I thank God it is a Saturday morning. No academic load, and I have myself all for me. Then I suddenly heard this big horn, and I stretched my eyes to see through the window what this early morning disturbance could be. Guess what I saw? I saw a taxi in my garden. I peeped very well to know whose taxi it is, but I was struggling because the weather was not yet very clear. I decided to come outside. As I was about opening the door, I heard the doorbell ring. I quickly opened the door, and there he is, the taxi driver, standing right in front of my door. Wow, he's finally out! I invited him inside, and he came in full of joy and happiness. I decided not to give him that warm welcome as usual because, for all I know, I'm no longer safe with him around me. I did the little I can by offering him a coffee. You can keep it on the table. This coffee is not what I need now. Then he started caressing my long, silky hair. The feelings of my dream just came over me again. I felt loved once more. I felt like holding the taxi driver again and kissing him all over. He gently drew my head to his chest and made me lie on it comfortably. Oh, this one place I always loved to be, on Daddy's body. But my parents are so strict that I never had such moments with them. Sometimes when I come close to him, seeking for just petting and care, the next thing would either be an interruption from a business call or a haste to work. Growing up was never fun for me, and now someone is giving it to me with quality attention, love, and care without seeking anything in return. But then, I was reluctant to allow him to have his way. Of course, you know that I was still afraid from the time I found the strange paper. You are not going to escape me this time, I murmured within myself. I was now very much out to talk to him about the papers I found, and when I was about to ask him, he interrupted me again. Let's go. I want to show you something, he said. I got more scared this time. Where is he taking me to? Maybe the elimination time for Carol has finally come today. What do I do now? Do I call the cops or my parents? They were the ones that put him in jail for a reason. I'm yet to find out. Then I summoned up the courage to ask him. Where are you taking me to, and for what reason? To my apartment, of course, he responded. Or do you have any problem with that? This time he laughed uncontrollably. Okay, Because the last time you came, you didn't come back? Oh, don't worry. No matter what it takes me. I'm going to make sure you sleep on your bed tonight. And excuse me, who says I'm going to take the whole of your day? I just want to show you something and bring you back to the house. Certainly not more than an hour. I was still looking at him and his babblings in bewilderment. I asked him to allow me to dress up. Then I sluggishly changed into a pair of combat shorts and a shirt and a pair of canvas shoes. I consciously wore this attire with the sense that if anything should happen and it calls for me to take to my heels or fight, I will not have any hinges doing that. Immediately I came out, he screamed, "Wow! That's my elegant queen! What a strong woman! Brave and smart!" Those were exactly the same words that Uncle Sam used on me holding my throat when I went to make the report. Guys! This time around, my fears knew no bound. Nevertheless, I reluctantly entered his taxi and we went together to his apartment. On getting to his house, he didn't even care to offer me a seat or coffee. Rather, he immediately started searching for something. From the sitting room, he moved to the bedroom and came out again, scattering everywhere. Now he was already sweating profusely and was very nervous. "Who could have taken this? It was right here," he exclaimed. Then he took to his phone, which he forgot in the taxi, and called Uncle Sam on the phone. He did not answer. He sank on the sofa with a deep sigh. "What is it you are looking for? Tell me so I can help you," I said to him. He laughed hilariously at me and said that it is something I don't know and I shouldn't know until today. My heart skipped a beat and I screamed, "Till today? What is happening today?" I questioned him. He didn't respond to my question but drew me close to his bosom the second time and started caressing myself. "You're a genius, and I like that. But this one is a secret for me." Then he aggressively stood up and said, "Yes, let's go to Uncle Sam's house. He might know where it is." So we decided to go to his place. On arrival, taxi driver told me to wait in the car, and he went to Uncle Sam, and they started fighting with words. "Why are you lying to me? What did I do to you? Just tell me where it is." These were the words I was hearing as I eavesdropped. It didn't take long. Taxi driver came back in the car very nervous, and while we were going back to the house, I asked, "What's going on? Why are you so nervous?" He said nothing. "My uncle claims not to see what I've been looking for." There and then he told me that he had a paper where he put name ideas for his cat, and he can't find it. My goodness, is that all? I was surprised. Why, it should be a problem to him. Then I understood. You know the affinity we have with our cats. We value them so much, and anything concerning it. But then, the paper isn't the problem. But there is a precious name there, which I want to show you. Now I know that the paper was nothing scary. They were just name ideas, and he also wanted to name his cat with my name. This one got me crazy. You know, I was beginning to feel like a princess now. I excitedly told him that I have a surprise for him too, when we get to my house. This time my fears have already melted. I was beginning to see that lovely and caring friend in him, as before. On getting home, I rushed immediately under my bed where I hide confidential things. I ran out of the room in a dancing and excited motion, and I showed him the paper and told him that I wanted to save it for him. He jumped on his feet and lifted me up, flinging me around the room, looking into my eyes. He wanted to say something, but then remained speechless. Finally, we went back to his house again. Behold, the cat lying in her normal position on the taxi driver's bed. This time, immediately she saw me. She smiled at me, and he carried his cat up facing me, and named the cat Carol, my name. You are very beautiful, meek, and smart. That's why I gave you this name after Carol, my friend. Both of you possess the same quality. And he handed over the cat to me, saying, Carol, behold your namesake, Carol. That was one of the best nights ever. He really treated me like a queen and also thanked me a lot for everything I did when he was in prison. I have a good news to break to you. My taxi driver friend announced to me that he wanted to open a beautiful big boutique for me, where I can sell cats and its accessories. Talay! Oh, my Cinderella dance! I couldn't help the excitement that was written all over me. I jumped on him, giving a big, big hug in appreciation. I would have kissed him, but I was still being a disciplined and good girl, you know? This is a dream come true. I know how I have longed for this, but my parents wouldn't let me have my way. Wow! I can imagine the name of my boutique. Carol Cat Boutique, or Catty Car Boutique. Home for your cat. Whichever one, I can't wait to see the reality of this offer. My desperate mood can be defined from my voice. When? Where? How? I questioned. He was happy that I'm excited too. He told me to calm down. That will be soon. But first, he wants to give me a treat by sending me to travel to another state of my choice. That sounds great, but too good to be true. The taxi driver is just full of surprises. And what I did to deserve all this is what I can't tell now. In addition, he said that on my arrival, I will also have to bring a bag from his friend. Not again. A bag? The last one was not funny. I was still shocked, confused on whether to embark on the trip or not. Meanwhile, he is still awaiting my response. Why on earth would he just send only me for this trip? Why won't he come along with me? I cannot forget the saying that once bitten, twice shy. Should I take this second risk again? For sure, if I am to embark on this journey, my parents would not be aware of it. What if at this period my parents visit me in school, and what will be my response? How do I face my parents when I return? I'm thinking, what would go wrong? It sounds just like a free trip. But I told the taxi driver that I will think about that and let him know. Really? Hope you're not going to take all ages to think about this. I expected you to make it snappy and give me a yes, and then you leave the rest for me, because the next thing you will see in your hands is your plane ticket ready to go on board. He snapped his fingers. I still have no one else to confide in. What do you guys think? Should I make a free trip that's going to be fun and give me exposure and experience as a young girl? What should I do? Please let me know in the comments below. I have always seen that adulthood is more of an elusive, sort of abstract concept that I'd thought when I was younger. I just assumed you'd get to a certain age and everything would make sense. That's just what I think right now. I feel like making my own decisions without my parents' consent. Yeah, I'm an adult after all because I'm already 18. Some of my age mates are already having boyfriends, but I've not got into any relationships before. But you know what? Now I'm ready for it, and I do not doubt that my taxi driver friend is waiting for me to give him the next blink, to get closer to me more than ever. As you know, the taxi driver is a kind and generous person. He is someone I've always loved to be around, irrespective of the misunderstandings of the past. It was no longer as though he was reading my heart as regards to what I want. Becoming fond of me is an understatement comparing to what started existing between me and the taxi driver, especially since he told me of my free trip to Brazil. One cool evening, I was at home when he knocked on my door. I opened the door and guess what I saw? A bunch of rose flowers standing right in front of me, but the knocker was nowhere to be found. I know it will be you, I said, kissing the flower as I made my way into my room. Then he appeared from my behind. Ah! My heart skipped a beat. He hugged me, telling me how much he values and respects me. I love it when someone uses the phrase, I value you. He told me that he would like to spend the night with me, and it was going to be the best night of my life. You know that when you are gone to Brazil, I will miss you so much. so permit me to enjoy quality time with you before your departure." Immediately he said that, I became skeptical because of the last incident that took place, the last time we wanted to spend time together. But then, since I found out that Taxi Driver is not a bad person, I now feel free and safe with him. So I accepted. Yeah, I accepted to spend the night with him at my house. He is so lovely. During dinner, he fed me as though I was a baby. You know, I can't tell the last time someone fed me, talk more of petting me. Indeed, that night was a night of nights. We freshened up and then retired to bed, though he decided to sleep on the floor. I was surprised. But before then, he came to my bed and whispered to me, "I've got a movie for us to watch. Do you mind joining me?" "Sure," I screamed in excitement. He took me to the couch and played the movie. Oh, it was a blue film. He turned off the lights, and all we could hear were moans from the television. We watched with keen interest until we were sent to bed. That night, the taxi driver sneaked into my bed, and that was how it started. He would touch me on sensitive parts of my body. I was very aroused and excited. My heart was pounding, and my respiration was serious. I had never been this aroused before. Then he whispered to me again, "I love you with all my heart, and I promise not to hurt you, but grant me this offer, to stay with you throughout this weekend." This is what I wanted. I wish I can have this feeling over and over again. I gave him a yes, and he started kissing and caressing me. This happened almost every night for those 3 days we stayed together. We watched more movies, and we practiced what we watched, but he never did anything bad to me. I just can't stop loving you, Carol. I feel like kissing you over and over with passionate kisses, with eyes closed amidst the cool breeze under splashing rain. Even in my silence, I miss everything about you. Every time I start missing you, I try to pacify myself by thinking that the worst is already over. But no matter what I do, loneliness casts gloom and darkness. Like a raging, merciless tornado. It sucks away my life's happiness. Just hug me, Carol, and feel my heart barely limping through. I'm not asking for a lot from you. All I need is you. Your love is all I care about. Just your life alone. Just your love. Like a tree withering away without rain. Like a bird trapped mercilessly in a cage. Like a fish doing circles in a tiny bowl. Like a tiger, chained, loathing in rage. Like a flower dying under the harsh sun. Like a lake drying up in a drought. This is how I feel from within when I'm lost in thoughts of you, my dear Carol. That was a love song composed by the taxi driver to me on the last night we spent together. As days went by, I discovered that what we were doing was wrong, and we needed to start having some safety measures. He declared his love for me and showed me how much by doing things for me. He did my household chores, took me for a shopping spree in town. He didn't want to see anyone around me. At night, he would touch me and tell me he couldn't wait for me to grow so we could be doing that together. I was already forgetting about the trip to Brazil when he reminded me of it on the morning of his departure from my house. Then he dips hands into his pocket and gave me a one-way ticket to Brazil and wraps of money. I guess this is going to take you for 1 week to stay in Brazil. Your flight is booked for Saturday morning by 8 a.m. Immediately he left. I got back into the house. I was dancing all over the house full of joy. It seems like a dream to me. Carol in Brazil! Wow! I started getting the things I need ready for the trip. On Saturday morning, the taxi driver picked me up from my house, and we headed to the airport. He reminded me again that it's going to be a fun trip while we are heading to the airport, and upon arrival he says, "Good luck, Carol." Good luck? Why is he saying good luck to me instead of safe trip or journey mercies? I pondered. However, being carried away by excitement, I took it as nothing serious. It was a cool flight to Brazil, and I enjoyed every bit of it. On arrival to Rio de Janeiro, the second largest city in Brazil, my excitement knew no bounds as I sight the statues of Rio. So amazing! I landed at about noon, and it's very hot there. As I picked my luggage, I saw two guys waiting for me with my name boldly written on a paper, Carol. Without a second thought, they approached, although it was such a cold one without pleasantries. I entered their car as we embarked on a very long journey. It was then I realized that I have been taken from the city of Rio to a far and poor city of Piauí, and the hotel they lodged me in is nothing good to write home about. Very old and dirty. Gosh! Taxi driver, where are you? Was this what you promised me? I screamed. Out of depression, I asked the big guy if this is really where I'm going to stay. The big guy says, "Shut up, and you are not allowed to move from the hotel because the place is very dangerous." And they shut the door and left me. I was left alone. No dinner, no intercom connection. At midnight, I was scared the more because there was no light for me to even see myself, Carol. At 6 a.m. the next morning, the door was pushed open by one of the big guys. Just like when we first met, no pleasantries nor greetings comes. He hands 8 bottles of drinks filled with a purple fluid over to me and asks me to put it in a translucent bag. "What is this?" I asked him. He said, "These are the taxi driver's stuff. He needs them." I was getting more inquisitive this time as I saw the purple fluid drip again from the bag where I was parking them. "Why does he need this?" I asked again. He responded by saying that these are fantastic drinks and are produced only in Brazil. The big guy handed over my plane ticket to me to fly back with a fly time at 7 a.m. and shot the door saying, "I'm waiting for you downstairs. Hurry up." Oops, it's already 6:30 a.m. I somehow managed to fit all bottles to a bag, and we head to the airport. On arrival, the big guy left me at the airport and immediately disappeared. I innocently made my way to the control, and I queued together with other passengers. As I was waiting to get on the plane, a policeman screamed at me, "Hey, madam, please come with me." "What's wrong?" He sent me to a control check and asks what's in the bag. "I can spot that fluid dripping from your bag." I immediately told him that it's nothing but some drinks. In a twinkle of an eye, a lady came with a stick, opened a drink, and put a cotton board in the bottle, and the cotton board immediately turned from white to blue. Then the inspector said, "The result is positive for drugs." I was shocked. It was as if it were the movies. They started interrogating me without a break. "Which sent you? You're a drug pusher." They asked more and more questions, and I started crying. Then the police gave me the chance to call anyone for 1 minute, and after that will send me to custody. Who else will I call than my parents? I thought about the most lenient of my parents who can tolerate this bad news I'm about to break. "Okay, Mom." I called Mom on the phone. I told her that I'm in the police custody in Brazil. Mom is shocked, and the phone stops. I cannot believe it that I am sentenced to jail for 30 days. For what, I do not know. Guys, what wrong did I commit? What is my offense? Is it a bad thing to help a fellow? Please tell me, what should I do now? Help me by commenting on the video. Life can be devastating, especially when what you thought would never happen happens to you. Back in jail, I was kept at the female sector of the jail. Sitting at the door where I waited for the jailer to come and take me in, I was sitting close to a woman. She asked me what my offense was. I told her that I was caught carrying a liquid substance which I did not know was a drug. She shook her head in pity and said, "My daughter, it will not be a funny experience." Immediately, I got gripped by fear. I mean fear of the unknown. I began to imagine what my experience will look like. I've never been to prison before, never in my life. Initially, I was scared of meeting those real and fierce-looking drug bandits. I finally landed in the jail. That day, it was as if a new prey for consumption had just landed. I got scared the more because I have never slept in a jail before. The questions were too numerous for me to answer. What's your name? What's your offense? How long will you be here? Well, I was able to answer the few I could. Then I went to bed. Throughout the night, tears dripped down my cheeks, wondering what my parents would be thinking about me. I searched for sleep, but I could not get any. I was completely shattered. Even if I was to be jailed, certainly not in another country where I knew nobody. I was still dumbfounded, staring at the ceiling and wishing that the morning breaks as fast as possible. The next day, my mom came to see me in the jail. I hugged her as we lavished rivers of tears on each other's shoulders. Deep within Mom, she knows I am innocent. It was Dad that scolded me, asking what business I had to do in Brazil from school. I had no option than to explain everything that happened to them. Dad gave me assurance of getting me out of here this month. It was not such an easy one because I have no witness but myself. I could not even reach my taxi driver again. Then a few months down the line, I was still in a really bad way. Then I went up to court. I got 2.5 years. I was only 18. I was shocked and scared of being away from my family and friends for so long. I have never been in jail before, so I didn't know what to expect. I just wasn't myself. I couldn't sleep. I was keeping myself to myself, just staying in my cell. I've never made a friend or talked to anybody. I hated the taxi driver the more. He played with my life and sense. I began to have negative thoughts about him. Obviously, there is nothing good about my taxi driver. He has just been taking me from one problem to the other. This should be the 3rd time now that he is landing me into a problem. First, it was the letter under his cushion. Second was his arrest, which was done by my parents. And now he brought me to Brazil, only for me to end up in jail. What kind of man is this? I scream in agony. One of my jailmates jumped out of bed when she heard my scream, thinking that something is wrong. But when she entered my room, she noticed I was fine, apart from the sweat that was all over my body. She came close to me and drew me close to herself, cuddling me back to bed. She is such a nice person. With the stories I heard about the jail, I didn't believe a good person can be met in jail. She asked me what was the problem. I was still speechless. After waiting for some minutes, I finally spoke to someone in the jail. I felt loved once more. I hid nothing from Cynthia. I told her everything that happened. How I met the taxi driver, and how I fell in love with him, and the challenges I have experienced from being close to him all this while. But then I noticed something. Cynthia kept smiling at me while I was telling her the story. I was surprised. What is it that my story was not touchy enough? I was disturbed about her response that I asked her if she has had such an experience before now. She said not really, just that she was imagining how good the taxi driver was to me. I was really surprised because this was a taxi driver that brought me here. All she said after hearing my story was, "Will you get something good without getting bad? It's not possible that all these just happened like that." This statement got me thinking throughout the morning, but I decided not to get confused and came to the conclusion that taxi driver just used and dumped me. Months went by, and I didn't hear from my parents talk of more of the taxi driver. This was another wonder for me. How can my parents abandon their only child in a jail in another country? It was that bad that even when I tried calling with the jail cell phone, they would not pick my calls. I sent them messages still yet. I got no response from them. Are you sure these are my parents? Because I don't see the reason why a mother and father should abandon their own child, even if she committed murder. I felt like killing myself. I think that should be the best solution since nobody cares. Not even the court called up my case again. Well, for the court, I don't blame them because I had no lawyer. Because the last time I checked, my parents promised to come with my lawyer who will take me out of jail. My dad had the best lawyer in my country. From the cases I have learned he has won so far, they are nothing to compare to it. All he would need is just a truthful statement of the story from me. Give him the next 24 hours and I'm out of here. But I never saw a glimpse of neither my dad nor his lawyer. On one Saturday morning about 2 a.m., I was sleeping and the memories of me and my parents kept flashing down my memory. How loving the taxi driver was to me, and how he promised to set up my cat boutique was the second thing that came to my mind. And then the last thought I had was that of my cat, Karina. I was debased. I thought of how lonely she would be by now. Has she run away from the house when she saw no sign of my return? Oh my God! How has she been feeding? Who has been cuddling her during the snow because of the cold would be hectic by this time? I woke up from these memories weeping profusely, and I felt like killing myself and forgetting everything. I thought of getting a knife or gun from the jailers, but they were all in custody of their weapons. Then a thought came into me. If I can stay under the snow and get trapped there, it will be nice. After all, nobody will know because the snow would have heaped on my body and everybody will think it is a normal snowberg. What happened to me that early morning was what I could not fathom. All I could remember was that I stood up and took a walk outside into the snow. I stood outside the snow trying to forget my past. The doctor said I came back to consciousness after 3 days, and it was alleged that I wanted to commit a suicide in a snowberg. When I was unconscious, I could not remember any other thing. All I saw was myself walk through a dark lane with my cat. She was so happy to see me. She jumped on every part of my body, but I noticed she lost one of her eyes. When I saw this, I was angry, and I wondered of what would have led her to this state. Could it be that she was trying to break through the window when she did not see a sign of my return and got cut? But thank God that I woke up. When I woke up, everything changed. It was as if I was in a new world. On opening my eyes, I saw a lot of changes. I was surrounded with flowers everywhere on the hospital bed. The walls, even the floor, were well decorated with rose flowers. Oh, they are my best flowers. Another spectacular thing I saw was signs written on the doorpost telling me to get well soon. Another read, "We love you. Please come home. We miss you." The hospital room was calm with no sign of any human being. I couldn't understand what was going on. I stretched my hands and legs but I didn't feel any pain. I felt a bit relieved that nothing serious happened to me. I took one of the flyers and perceived the healing aura that came from the petals. I remained in the room without making a move, but kept wondering on who this could be. I thought aloud, I know this is from my cellmates. They love me to the extent of saving me from the iceberg. When I remembered the care and love they shower on me whenever I feel pale and lonely, they make sure I feel good by singing to me. Suddenly, the doors opened. Guess who I saw? It was Karina, my cat. She ran onto my bed and hugged. This is unbelievable. I expected to see the jailers around me to get me secured so that I don't run away. But the opposite was the case. I saw my cellmates walking and started singing. Happy birthday to me. How could I have forgotten that it was my birthday? I just turned 19, and I never knew. Then the big shocker came when I saw the jailers also walk up in the same mood. It was a dancing party amidst a lot of drinking. Indeed, my mood was lightened, and I got more excited. I stepped down and joined them in the dance. The door opened again, and who I saw was unbelievable to me. It was the 2 policewomen that caught me with the black liquid substance at the airport. I got scared the more and began to withdraw my steps backward, looking for somewhere to hide. But they called me on to feel free and also celebrate my day. They joined in the dance. I tried feeling free, but I couldn't help it but to remain careful and conscious of my environment. I was still trying to understand what was happening when my parents walked in. I wanted to hug them in excitement, but then I had a mixed feeling. Why should I welcome them after abandoning me for the months in the jail? But my mom rushed and hugged me. She pleaded for forgiveness as she promised to explain all that transpired to me. The next person I saw was beyond my imagination. The taxi driver walked in and knelt down in front of me with a ring in his hands. I was mute. Then Mom and Dad and everybody in the room screamed, "Please say yes!" Then Dad said that everything that happened was a deal to check my love for the taxi driver, who happened to be a multi-millionaire in the fashion industry. I said yes because I still love my taxi driver. We got married and loved each other forever.
Dad left. Mom was an alcoholic. God, looking back, my childhood was depressing. Maybe not as depressing as some others. I wasn't molested, beside my uncle taking a photo of me in the shower once when I was 7. That was weird. I wasn't chained to a radiator. I wasn't starved. I wasn't frequently abused. Negotiable. But my dad left when I was 2. My sister, who bullied me relentlessly when I was younger, who'd punched me on the bus and let middle schoolers drop books on my head when I was in kindergarten. We lived with my grandmother in a house that was, to say the least, a mess. Let's get this clear. We weren't hoarders. But a diagnosed ADHD 5-year-old, me, an alcoholic, a bipolar grandmother in her 70s, and a moody teenager were not, that's an understatement, good at cleaning house. The house was big and would have been beautiful if well kept. It wasn't. It smelt. There was usually trash everywhere. Playdates at my house were a no-go. Elementary school was lonely. God, it was so lonely. I had maybe 2 true friends, one at school and a neighbor whose house I'd visit frequently. I was the freak, the spaz, the girl who talked too much, the girl who was separated from the other kids and told by teachers, "You're just too stupid for this." Okay, to be fair, I was pretty horrible, I guess, but I had bad influences. Middle schoolers would curse around me, at me, on the bus. You know what I did one day in the lunch line because I was mad? I turned around and gave a girl the finger. A teacher saw and thought I was doing it to them. There was also another time where I had pushed someone for cutting me in line, and the next thing I knew, the girl was on the ground clutching her neck. Everyone claimed I choked her. I didn't. I was bullied for having a pink book bag because femininity was such a horrible thing. My sister had joined in on the bullying. I remember swinging my book bag around and throwing it. Apparently, it hit this girl in my grade. I don't remember that. I relied on Barbies, stuffed animals, and imaginary friends for company. And I didn't see anything wrong with that. Why should I? Because they were real, right? Those adventures I went on with them happened, and of course they would never leave me. I spent a large portion of my childhood in my room, or rooms, because at my house we switched rooms a lot. I remember hearing my mom yelling at Grandma and going into my room and moving my bed to block the door. I remember the tiny TV and the DVD player I had, and I remember turning on Jurassic Park because to a first grader at the time, that was real. Dinosaurs were alive. They were here. Dr. Alan Grant and Ian Malcolm were actual people, goddammit, and maybe they would take me to go see the dinosaurs. Then the kids at school told me that Jurassic Park was fictional and dinosaurs had not indeed been brought back to life. And I didn't believe them until second grade. I used to think my dad was Ian Malcolm because Jeff Goldblum looked like how I remembered my dad. I loved my mom so much back then because I didn't realize anything was wrong with her. Just to avoid her when she started yelling, I held no personal grudges against her. It wasn't always Jurassic Park, all 3 movies. Sometimes it was Barbie or Land Before Time. At one point, it was The Hunger Games. I had a bow and arrow made of bamboo. My neighbor friend made it for me. They had bamboo trees growing in their backyard. God, at that time, that was so cool. Pretending to be Katniss Everdeen, that was a euphoric feeling. I was 7 when I realized my sister genuinely wasn't afraid to hurt me. I remember walking home from the bus stop one day with her and stopping to tie my shoe. I don't tie my shoes anymore. Not because of that. Maybe because of that. They get knotted, and it's annoying. People tell me to tie my shoes constantly. I don't. She started walking, realized I stopped, grabbed my hair, and pulled me across the street. Then she gave me a black eye to prove to the other middle schoolers that she was cool. I remember ignoring my mom's drunk yells and her calling for me downstairs. No, why would I be able to hear her over the dinosaur roaring in my room? Why should I put down my Barbies for her? I was 7 when I went to Seattle for the first time. I was even more lonely, honestly, because my dad, different dad than my sister, worked outside the baseball stadium selling magazines, and I would sit on the steps and wait for a shift to be over. But what was I really doing? God, I was exploring. I'd go off and talk to imaginary friends, and the one that would land outside the stadium in her own private jet. She was imaginary, so she could do that. I roamed down the apartment building halls, calling the fire escapes with my imaginary friends' apartments. I didn't even realize I was lonely. I love my dad, I do. He's tried his best, and I'm so happy he's in my life now. Even though he still lives in Seattle, and I see him maybe a month out of the year now, if even. But Seattle was lonely. My uncle who lived with my dad wasn't a good man. He took advantage of my dad's hospitality. He made lewd comments, he took a photo of me while I was showering, and called it a joke. I was 8 when my aunt on my mom's side made me start stacking wood for her. Oh God, I hated stacking wood. I hated that her house, with her and my extreme Christian right-wing uncle, made me and my sister go over there and stack wood. I hated that stacking wood for the stupid fire pit, and the stupid fireplace was where I would spend my summer before and after going to Seattle. I hated doing that in the heat. I hated doing that in the cold. And if we didn't do it right, we'd be up all night and wouldn't be allowed dinner until we finished. I hated stacking wood. I was 9 when I realized my mother had a problem with alcohol. She started drinking that funny tasting and smelling substance and got really weird. And then she started yelling. But that was okay because I'd go to my room and watch Jurassic Park and play with my Barbies, right? I remember her threatening my grandma, threatening my sister, threatening me. Then I stole her phone and barricaded myself in the bathroom because that was the only room in the house with a lock. I remember the first time I called the cops on my mother. They came and they couldn't really do anything. They told her if they had to come back, she'd be arrested. I was so scared I called my aunt and she came and picked us up. As much as I resented I have towards them for, child labor and a bit of child abuse, for different reasons than stacking wood, it was better than staying with my mother. Most of the time, Grandma would come with. Sometimes she refused to be kicked out of her own house. We had bed bugs. That was an understatement. God, when I had brought bed bugs down from Seattle when I came back, we had them bad. It was horrible. We had to tear up our carpet, had to throw away our furniture. Me, my sister, and my grandmother slept on air mattresses and old chairs that my aunt had given to us. Keep them, she said. You see, my issue at the time wasn't the bed bugs. Personally, that was the least of my problems. A few months prior to the start of the bed bug ordeal, my best friend at school, my only friend at school, introduced me to that stupid internet meme, Slender Man. Me in 3rd grade didn't really think of it as a meme. 9-year-old me was convinced he was real, and there was no doubt about that. I couldn't sleep. I prayed every night with my grandmother. I didn't pray before that. I don't pray now. Because that tall, thin man with tentacle arms was coming to get me. My mom had a boyfriend and was going back to college. She was calming down on her drinking. I had spent most of my time at her boyfriend's house with her, since she had basically moved in with him. Those were some happy memories. He was a good cook, had a nice backyard in which I could shoot at the ground with my new plastic bow and arrow. The only time I was ever at home was on Wednesdays, when my mom had a late class. And then my mom got arrested. She called into her school, drunk, because she had not finished a paper that was due the next day, and claimed my brother was going to bomb the school. She doesn't have a brother, 3 sisters, 2 of which I've never met, no brother. It was a week after the Boston Marathon bombing. I didn't go to Seattle that summer. She spent a month in jail. I spent the last of the school year at my own house, going to my aunt's on the weekends. Then when summer came around, we practically lived at my aunt's house. I got a scholarship offer for a Girl Scout camp. I didn't take it because my impending fear of Slenderman had not faded away yet. I went from praying every night with my grandma to praying with my aunt. I remember visiting Mom in jail. I remember crying. I remember my aunt taking us for ice cream afterward to cheer us up. Maybe my aunt wasn't all that bad, just my uncle. Mom got out. I got a 3DS for my 10th birthday. It was midnight blue. God, I remember how much time I spent on that. My sister threw a hissy fit over me getting one, and she had one a week later. Mom got drunk the night of my birthday. We still had no permanent furniture. That was an issue. We got some, not all of it at once. I was only on my air mattress in a different room, playing a game. Mom was drinking. She yelled at me and dragged me into the living room, claiming she wanted me to be with family. My 10th birthday tied worst birthday ever with my 9th. I fell off a swing in Seattle and broke my arm. 4th grade, Mom went to rehab. She took me with her, as there was a special program where you could bring your children along. I was the only 4th grader there, besides the babies whose mothers didn't have anyone who could watch them. That was during the time where I really started liking books. I was reading The Hunger Games. They took my DS and I had nothing better to do. My imaginary friend had long faded away and my interest in Barbies disappeared. My only real companion was the stuffed T-Rex I had taken with me. Mom got kicked out of rehab within 2 weeks. She broke a rule. Talk to someone while she was being shunned. She called them crazy. I lived with my Nana, Dad's side, for 2 weeks. I missed school. I finished the first and second Hunger Games book in those 2 weeks. Then I found out that I was being sent off to Seattle to live with my dad. I was gonna finish 4th grade up there. As a reward for finishing the entire Hunger Games series, my mom had given me a tablet. It was an Android, off-brand of something, but I didn't care because I had a tablet. I read online, I wrote, I started realizing that I really liked writing. I had friends up there. I grew even more passionate about reading and writing. I loved going to my library because of books, but also because of the Wi-Fi that my dad didn't have at the time, with my dad. Then my tablet got stolen. I left it next to my book bag while I went to the bathroom. My dad bought me another one. He surprised me with it. I came back 6 months later, my mom telling me I would be going to a different school. My old school knew about my mom's drinking problem. She didn't like that. I lost contact with all the friends I had made in basically my lifetime up to that point. The neighborhood friend had to move. I lost touch with the Seattle kids. 5th grade was back to being incredibly lonely. My Nana died. It was her last Christmas. It was devastating. In 6th, I had one true friend, and she left school and I never saw her again. No one wanted to be friends with the tall, big girl who was called King Kong. Not until 7th grade is when I realized I had a few people that liked me. But I had books. I had those stupid Jurassic Park movies, and I finally had a phone. I'm a sophomore in high school now, and I don't rely on books or Jurassic Park or imaginary friends or Barbies for company now because I have friends. Mom still drinks, and my sister is still, in all terms I could think of, a bitch. Dad still lives in Seattle. He was here for Christmas. I didn't sleep well. I grew up lonely. I didn't realize it at the time because, well, who was I to doubt my imagination? But I was painfully alone. So alone that I relied on extensions of my imagination for company. Because the teacher said, this girl is too wild to be with kids her age. She shouldn't talk. Because my mom was so drunk off her ass, I isolated myself without even realizing I was isolated. Refusing to cook the kind of food my husband. So let me preface this by saying that I was overweight when I met my husband. Also, before I started working from home, I, a female of 28, didn't really care about how healthy our meals were. I cooked comfort food most of the time with little thought regarding calories, and my husband, a male who's 41, loved everything I made. I think it's part of the reason he fell for me, to be honest. Since I started working from home, I now have an extra 2 hours a day as I'm no longer commuting and have used it to start exercising. My family has a history of high blood pressure, and it hit home for me just recently that it's time to get in shape. My husband was supportive at first, but as I've started to really lose weight, he's become less so. He's always bringing home junk food, which would be fine if he wanted it just for himself, but he tries to pressure me into eating it as well. My husband is a mailman and walks 15 miles a day, so he's in better shape than I am. His dinners used to consist of 2 or 3 helpings of whatever unhealthy food I made that day. Lately, I've been making healthier choices when it comes to our food. My husband can't cook to save his life, and the grocery shopping and all cooking is done by me. When I say healthier choices, I don't mean tofu and kale. I mean that I've started cooking our favorite foods, but with healthier alternatives, like using 1% milk instead of heavy cream, and adding veggies. Since I've started doing this, my husband has doubled his efforts in trying to get me to stop working on my health. He still has his normal 2 to 3 helpings, so the food can't taste that bad. It's gotten to the point where I don't even share with him anymore if I reach a new goal because he gets all surly. It all came to a head last night when I made a casserole and added broccoli and used a lighter sauce. He flipped out and said I'm trying to push my get better looking agenda off on him, even though my efforts to get in shape have nothing to do with how I look. He then accused me of being sick of him and using my workouts as an excuse to get away from him, which is completely untrue. I enjoy our time together, and my workouts right now are only 40 minutes because it's all I can manage, so I'm not leaving him alone that long. He then said that he would drop it if I would go back to cooking and eating the way I used to. I told him that he was more than welcome to cook the way he wanted, but he refused and left in a huff. While he was gone, I called my sister to try to get some perspective. She sided with my husband and said I was being TA by not providing him with the fuel he needs for his physically intensive job, even though the cooking I'm making now is more nutrient dense than it was before. And that just because cooking was one of my tasks in the relationship didn't mean I should be the only one with any say in how things are made. I'm a 19-year-old female. My 22-year-old boyfriend does not want me being friends with my guy friends. I'm a tomboy girl who plays a lot of video games and has a tendency to get along better with guys because of this, and of my more laid-back personality. I have a really hard time making friends that are girls. Most of the friends I did have would lie and backstab and spread secrets about me, and 9 times out of 10, I would have a big falling out because I would eventually get mad or upset and not be able to take it anymore, and everyone would end up hating me and shunning me from the group of girls. So I have a hard time trusting girls because of this. My friend group consisted of me, another girl, and 3 guys. My friend who is a girl, we will call her Amy, I have known since high school. She introduced me to one of the guys, who in turn introduced me and Amy to the rest of the group. My boyfriend and I have been together for about 10 months now. Since the beginning, he has known I have close guy friends. In the beginning, he put on the front that he was okay with this, but gradually became more expressive about how this bothered him and upset him. Out of the group, I was closest with Amy and one of the guys, we will call Kevin, and I talked to the both of them regularly through texting. Kevin has helped me through a lot and has talked me through more problems than I could think of. To me, it was important that my boyfriend met Amy and Kevin because they were two of the most important people in my life at the time. When Kevin was scheduled to take leave, my boyfriend absolutely refused to meet him, told me he would never like him and that he would never be okay with our friendship. His reasoning was that guys and girls can never just be platonically friends. I even tried to explain how Kevin had feelings for Amy and everything to try and show him Kevin was not interested in me. After a while, I began to feel guilty and beat myself up over having guy friends, and eventually began nitpicking the things I didn't like in a way to convince myself to not be their friend. At the end, I didn't reach out to them as much, and they hardly, if ever, reached out to me. Fast forward to a couple months later, and I am working at this new job and trying to make friends. I'm still in touch with Amy, though not very close since she is opinionated and I often do not agree with her opinions, which in turn causes her to get mad at me. I'm pretty much seeking out girls at this point to be friends with, because I do genuinely want friends that are girls so they could relate with me to the things my guy friends couldn't, but also because I know it wouldn't put a strain on my relationship. Where I work, not many girls work there, so I tried to make friends with who I could, and lo and behold, they are all guys. It makes me hate myself because I feel terrible for only being friends with guys, and I know it drives my boyfriend crazy, and I want nothing more than for him to be happy, but I just cannot have friends. I ended up becoming close to a guy we will call Dale, and now he has become practically my only friend and the only person I really talk to other than my boyfriend. Well, my boyfriend tried to put on the front that he was okay with it and he was going to meet him, but the day before he met him, my boyfriend got upset and told me he didn't like it. I tried my best to comfort him, explaining how I only have eyes for him and that I will never be friends with a guy if I genuinely thought they would be disrespectful towards my relationship. But in the end, I basically agreed to not talk to him anymore, or at least as much. Well, this weekend, my boyfriend had a plan to go hang out with his friends for the weekend about an hour away, and usually it's just him and 2 other guys, but now it's his normal 2 friends and 2 more guys he usually doesn't hang out with. They like to drink and go to bars and clubs typically, but they can't do any of that because of the coronavirus. They also used to smoke weed together, but since my boyfriend has quit, just his friends do it even when he's there. I have never been a big drinker or partier and have been in bad situations where people force drinking and weed on me. I don't mind drinking with my boyfriend to cut loose a little, but my boyfriend never wants to drink with me. This has made it all that much harder for me to accept him drinking with his friends because he just never will drink with me. It hurts my feelings and I've brought it up before, but he just seems to make excuses as to why he won't. I've never been comfortable with any of it, but I knew it made him happy, so I always supported him. Now that he's made it hard for me to be friends with the people I want to be friends with, I have a hard time supporting the things he wants to do that I don't like because I don't have his support. I expressed I was upset he was going, and I have nothing to do or no one to talk to because he had a problem with my friends. I got mad, I got sad, I got stressed, I cried, and he offered not to go, but I would never be the girlfriend who would ask him not to see his friends. He went to see his friends, and now I feel so hurt and angry and resentful towards him for going because I know that if he had expressed how upset he was, he wouldn't have had to ask me not to go. I just wouldn't have. I texted him explaining how I was mad and hurt and that I didn't know if I could speak to him right now. And all he said was he didn't know how upset I was, even though I literally told him. I feel like he gets to do whatever he wants, but I can't do what makes me happy. I know he loves me and I love him very much, but I'm just hurt and confused. I don't want to make either of us unhappy, but I feel like either we both get what we want or neither of us get what we want. Will only be the solutions, but they really don't feel like solutions. I need help. How religion took 16 years from my life. It feels weird to do this, but I wanted to tell my story to people who might understand. I'm not professionally diagnosed, but I definitely have deep emotional and mental problems. Please don't tell me to seek out professional help. I want to have therapy so bad. I know that I need help, but for now, it's not possible. Because if I would ask my parents, they would tell me I should pray to God and He would fix the phase I have. But I assure you, as soon as I get the opportunity to seek out professional help, without my parents knowing I'm going to. As long as that is possible, I'm trying to figure out what is going on with me on my own. I did so much research during quarantine because I started to question my sense of self, especially my identity, and ended up having an internal crisis. I thought my issues weren't that deep because I never was physically abused and technically everything in my life was fine. I had clothes, food, and an overall loving family on the surface, and I played it down because I thought someone like me can't call their experiences trauma because I was never hit nor bullied. Generally, people like me because I was a massive people pleaser and still do it, but it's gotten better. Or at least, they were nice to me. My parents supported me, helped me out when I needed money for something, and now there are two parts of me fighting. The one part that knows exactly how hecked up I really am, and the other part that tells me I'm exaggerating, that I should stop overthinking and stop being ungrateful. I'm torn, and I hope to find at least one person who kind of understands me. I feel like no one could ever get me, because my trauma doesn't feel validated. Even though I found out that the part of the brain that is responsible for physical pain is also responsible for emotional pain. It still feels like I don't deserve to be heard, because on the surface, everything was perfectly fine, and even though I talked to friends about it and they really helped me, they still told me to be grateful that I was well-liked and no one directly hurt me. But I can't. I can't look at the positive aspects and live normally. It affects my life. It affects the person I am. It shaped me. I can't concentrate, and it got worse and worse with time. I have emotional outbursts that I learned to hide. I'm constantly on guard and don't feel safe in my house because I constantly think my parents could find out something that I'm hiding from them. I can never relax no matter where I am, except when I'm at my boyfriend's house and I know no one is going to be at home for a longer period of time. I feel like I'm not worth it. I feel ugly on the inside and outside, and I hate myself for coping by overeating. I'm not obese nor anything near it, but if I continue to eat how I eat without going to the gym, it could happen. I feel like I don't have to be the main mother figure to my sisters because my mom is so emotionally detached that I don't want them to think that what she does is real love. But the worst thing is how distant I feel from my emotions and myself. Does a myself even exist? Can I ever be it? I feel numbed out and drained, even though I do nothing all day but distract myself as good as I can. I feel like I never achieved anything and that I never will. Everything is so overwhelming and so hard to do, even the littlest homework or task. That's why I have a pile of work in my emails, and in the back of my mind that stresses me the hell out. But I just can't get myself to do it unless it has a deadline. And even then, I tend to it last minute. I feel weak, stupid, and misunderstood, and I think to myself, if that continues, all my good marks are going to drop, and then my parents are going to be a problem even on the surface. I'm doing my A-levels, class of 2021, in Germany. I was born here. Right now, and I just feel like I can't do it, and it is required from me that I get a prestigious degree, even though I would rather pursue a singing career. That was the longest introduction I ever wrote, but it needed to be at least written down somewhere. So what is the big deal? What am I complaining about? I'll try to create a chronological order and to remember everything crucial, but I yesterday realized that I'm missing blocks of time in my memories, even from recent times. It all started before I was born. My parents found each other through friends and got together. My mom lived in Kazakhstan before moving to Germany. I still don't know exactly why. and my father lived in Siberia before moving to Germany. His and my uncle's parents wanted to prevent them from having to fight in a war zone, and so they happened to live in the same city and they met. They got together and married. Then their neighbors invited them to go with them to a Russian-German evangelical church, and they ended up being members. Then I was born and everything was perfect. I was in church every Sunday from the moment my mother could leave the hospital. I never knew anything different. And as soon as I was able to be separated from my mother for 2 to 3 hours, I was with other children my age while the adults were attending the big service. And then the indoctrination started. I don't remember much from my time in church, or the cult as I call it now, from the time before I was 12. I only remember my time in school, which is very odd to me, but what do I know? I just remember being a people pleaser from the start and everything they taught us, but there aren't many clear memories. I was good at being a people pleaser. Now it's easy for me to approach people and connect on a surface level, but at what price? It's scary to me that my memories are so blurry. I don't even know who I was friends with or if I even had friends before the age of 10. I just remember that I wanted to be perfect in God's eyes. I wanted to be the perfect example of a girl who loves Jesus with all her heart. I wanted people in church to look at me and think I will make it far in my faith. And I achieved that, I think. But now I hate my past self for caring so much. So what were we taught there? God created the world, Jesus died for my sins and resurrected after 3 days. The Bible is the only truth and the only way I must live. Everything else is the devil's work. And even though they didn't say it in particular, but that our church is the only one to teach the real truth, and that every other church doesn't have God in it and immediately leads to hell and damnation. We were taught that the secular world was highly dangerous, and as soon as we were not following one of God's, the church's, rules, we were open for demons to attack us. And to make it short, you could sin by thinking something. So we were taught to somehow control our thoughts, but give full control to God over every little aspect in our lives, because everything is predestined and we don't have control about anything anyways. But we're still responsible for our actions somehow, and we still have a free will granted from God. While writing this, I really understand how contradicting this is, and it was a core belief of mine. When an adult who looked after you as a toddler tells you this, and there are 500 people who all believed it wholeheartedly, you try to justify it until you really can't anymore. And then everything shatters. Losing faith is something that was so deeply intertwined with your whole existence. It's like part of you just died. Even though you know how ridiculous it was believing in it, and you still feel stupid for not realizing it earlier. So in a nutshell, everything bad you do is because you're not saved. Because for someone who is really saved, it's physically impossible to sin no matter how, and automatically fully your fault. But when you achieve something, it's because God did it. You're never capable of doing or achieving something on your own. You're even unable to think the right, good way. So you're basically nothing and unimportant. But when you come to God, He gives you a purpose He specifically chose for you. You matter to Him. You're worthy of His love. And even though we were taught He is forgiving to everyone and almost everything, if you only follow Him everywhere He leads you. Another bizarre contradiction they teach little children: you're nothing, but with God, you're worthy. It makes me unbelievably mad that there are gradually more and more children who grow up believing this, who are taught that demons, the devil, and hell are around every corner to take them and torture them for eternity if they slip up one tiny bit. That's why I cried myself to sleep for years, begging God to forgive me for saying shit one time, or thinking in my head that I wanted to kiss a boy, not speaking of being attracted to a girl, because of course anything than straight marriage within my church is wrong. Yes, I was expected to have a boyfriend within church, and if he was in the world, I had to convince him to go to church, and he has to love God. We weren't allowed to date before 17, and of course, no premarital sex, but they took it further to prevent it at all cost. You weren't allowed to be alone in a room with your significant other before marriage, so nothing could possibly happen. Holding hands and short hugs were allowed when engaged. So if you grew up there, find a boyfriend and get engaged as fast as possible, Because if you fall in love, it must be in God's plan. Because you want to F and then marry as fast as possible, you have to be together at least a year and then be engaged for at least half a year to have your first kiss ever, if you weren't sinful, in front of everybody, and when the pastor says, you may kiss the bride. We were taught that God wants us to be pure and learn to value our partner's personality. They told us girls that if we had a sexual relationship before marriage, you would never know if he really loves you or just wants your body, and that every guy outside church would never love us for our personalities. Another contradiction. These young adults rush into marriage not because they think, wow, I really value my partner as a person. No, they're sex-driven teenagers lying to themselves, which is absolutely not their fault, of course. No one is appreciating anything, and if they are, they're very lucky, because there were maybe 15 people in your age range that you could end up with. Girls were also taught to save themselves because we are like chewing gum. And if you're all chewed up, your godly future husband wouldn't want you, would he? We were told we were pure glasses of water. And if we sleep around before marriage, or even with only one person, every time dirt would fall into our pure water. And no one wants to drink dirty water. But the one thing that stuck with me that my mother, and later on, more older woman, told me was every time you sleep with a man, he takes part of your soul with him. That's why there should be only one guy from the start, so that you don't end up losing your soul. The thought of that terrified me to the core, and I believed it. Now I know it's bullshit, but it was in my head constantly for 5 or 6 years. We were told to cover up so guys don't want sin with their eyes and thoughts. Knee-length skirts and shorts were allowed, and I always hated how they looked on me. And you had to cover your belly and your shoulders at all cost. Cleavage was obviously not allowed, and so weren't tight clothes, only skinny jeans, not leggings, especially when you had a little bit more chest. And if you dared to show a tiny bit of skin, no matter how hot summer was, even if it was accidental, you'd get in trouble. I was in that godforsaken building almost every day, except for Wednesdays where we would meet up with our local little group of girls. There was a leader a few years older than us, and I'm glad mine wasn't as controlling as others, and didn't force me too much to work in different groups in church and discuss what our beloved, I could vomit remembering him and his sleazy and narcissistic behavior, pastor taught us on Sunday. I was involved in worship, and my love for singing kind of saved me because that's the only thing I really did because I myself wanted it. I danced, which was okay. It was workout for me and not dancing for God when I think about it. I looked after toddlers once a month during service with other women. I was in the theater group, and when there was an event for teenagers, I was responsible for leading a group of other teenagers to organize it, so everything was done and standing where it belongs. I liked organizing, so I was lucky they just positioned me there, but it was still hella stressful. And I played the piano, which I didn't really enjoy. So there were the basics. I was heavily involved. With 12, you move from being with children to the big service, and you're finally old enough to be part of all the cool things the teenagers did. But then you're also constantly stressed out, which worsened every year because obviously school got harder, but also the church demanded more and more, and suddenly you were thrown into highly responsible tasks, which drained you. When I was 14, I started constantly having headaches. I started drinking coffee because I was exhausted from not being able to sleep, being stressed out and constantly worried that someone would find out my secrets. And now I need a very strong one for it to work. Because in school, I was someone else. I had a different name in my school, my real name. In church, the pastor required my parents to introduce me with a very faraway nickname from my real name because it sounded like a name in the Bible that an evil person had, and if I'd be called that, it would curse me. I did and said what I wanted. It increased gradually because I still tried to be myself, which you could be in church. No. In school, but obviously couldn't do that because no one can. I thought I was being myself in school, and maybe that was myself when I was 14, but I still was the most severe case of a people pleaser. And I always ended up in dependent, toxic friendships because I could never say anything against them. I had no one else who was close to me, so that also hurt me even though I didn't notice at the time. People abused my kindness because in church they told us we had to be nice, and I could do that at least. So I held on to being nice to everyone, helping everyone, and inviting people to come to church who were remotely close to me, which still embarrasses me the most, but you get in trouble when you're not inviting people. I'm so glad I was in a very accepting class. No one was ever really bullied, just mocked for a few things maybe, which I was, for being in that church. And they told me early on, it's a cult. You believe in crazy shit. Stop going there. But we were taught that people who were afraid of the truth always say that. School was kind of a safe place for me, even if I had toxic friendships and got hurt a few times, because we live about 25 kilometers away from church, the cult, and nobody I knew from there could see me. And even though we were taught that God could see everything and is always reading our thoughts, I didn't feel very watched. I was scared shitless when I wore something in school we weren't allowed to wear in church, and I thought I saw someone I knew, so I felt better in school than at home. And that's why my definition of home is something entirely different than that of people who grew up in an emotionally safe home. So what was living in my home like? I'm the first daughter of 3, and therefore my father's precious firstborn. I learned really fast that just keeping quiet, smiling, and doing what I'm told is the best way to avoid any more stressful situations. I hated every form of confrontation, and I still do. When I was young as 3, my father threatened to hit me with a belt, and did it a few times, but I stopped misbehaving or questioning, so no one yelled at me anymore, and no one told me to stand in a corner without looking. So I just learned to not show my emotions at all at home, because emotions cause trouble and distress. They also told us that. God and our own intellect, which is controlled by God, must lead us. Emotions come out because of the devil. My father was in control of everything, and to this day, he is still extremely sexist, racist, homophobic, transphobic, etc. You name it. And he still thinks I have exactly the same opinions as him. He is very critical of my boyfriend, but because he puts on a facade in front of my father as I do, my father likes him. My parents, more my father, still don't want me to have anything premarital, even though they are less strict than before. So yeah, I can't ask for birth control because then they would not let me see my boyfriend. As I said, my father is very controlling and has a very high opinion of himself. Because he is providing for our family, he doesn't have to do anything regarding the house. This is on the women and the 4 girls in the house, because that's what God made us for. Popping out babies, cleaning, and cooking. But I still have to get a degree and a high-paying job. And then I ask myself, what do you want from me? What? In church, we learn that you have to find a job that gives you enough time to be as active as possible in church, while giving birth to as many children as possible and managing your whole household completely alone, because your husband is by God's law above you and there to lead you. How remarkably generous of you to lead me, because I can't decide on anything ever due to always thinking I don't have control anyways. That's why I need to plan everything obsessively and always know and control what's going on. I idolized my father until the realization that we don't have any emotional bond slowly reached me until it hit me hard. I had to organize my phone a certain way and delete messages so in case he would want to go through it, he wouldn't find anything. He wanted me to be his perfect show daughter who has good marks and serves God with all of her existence, and he really did that. In front of him, I am what he wants me to be. I don't know what my mother wants. She just does what my father tells her and silently agrees to what he has to say. Maybe I learned to behave in that way because she did. I'm honestly sorry for her because she never had a chance to study anything that could make her independent because of moving to Germany at 17 or 18 and not being able to speak the language very well. I could cry because no matter how brutal this sounds, her life is over in a way. She is what I never want to be. Whenever they told us how our future will look like, I had a kind of panic that I never felt before. At the time, I suppressed that, but when I think back, my heart rate goes up and I feel like I need to run as fast as I can. And that's why I hate to be dependent on someone. But weirdly, I still end up in situations where I'm highly dependent. Another thing that I can maybe explain now is my reaction to my grandfather's death. He was more of a father to me than my own, and his wife's home, which I also deeply love, felt safe. When I was 11 years old, my grandmother, my grandfather's wife, passed away because of cancer. And I was never allowed to see her while she was sick, nor to attend the funeral. And in that time, I already saw my grandpa rarely. When my parents told me my grandma passed away, I cried one time. I know that I was sad, but I somehow can't recall my immediate emotions from that day. And I thought I'm glad that I still have my grandpa, but he passed away 3 months later, and I wasn't able to see him during those months. When my father emotionlessly told us that his father also passed away, I felt nothing. I didn't cry, no reaction at all, and then I didn't think about it for years. But when I was 14, all of a sudden, all of the emotions I should have felt when I was 11 crushed me harder than ever. It was like reliving the day I was told he was gone forever for almost a year, and I was so confused. Why now? Why didn't I feel anything back then? Because my brain was already way too stressed for an 11-year-old and just didn't process properly. Then 3 years later, something triggered my memories and the horrors began. When I was 16, it hit me again because I found out he committed suicide through my cousin. Back to the cult. So am I still there? No. My parents realized how manipulative literally everything about it was, and without telling anyone there, childhood friends I grew up with included, we went there one last time, and on Sunday, the 23rd of September 2018, we drove away and never came back. And many others left too. We still meet every Sunday, and I still sing there because I don't want to confront my parents. I really don't want to be there because every time we're there, I'm not really there. I'm just a shell that moves around. During the preaching, which a few men do in turns, I'm always completely zoned out and can only concentrate for a bit if I really try. I don't know what that is or that means, but I absolutely hate it because I can't control it. And sometimes I'm just sad for no reason. I still can't sleep and still get a massive headache and can't stand up properly without strong coffee. I still eat too much stuff, I really shouldn't, and I feel bad for every little bit I eat, but I can't stop. And it also affects all of my relationships, especially with my boyfriend. He sometimes doesn't understand, but he still comforts me and is patient, which I'm really grateful for. And something that comes to mind only now is that my father used to completely lose it when I had a bad mark. I was afraid to come home and always started crying before even telling him. And then he would shout even more, beat the table with his fist, and tell me to stop crying. Now I can control if I'm going to cry or not when something upsets me, and if I want to show my emotions or not. Being a very good liar was essential, and it still is. When my father is mad at me because I don't do the dishes, he still gets very impulsive and shames me because if he works and gives me food and clothing, it's just disrespectful to leave the dishes for too long. And when he stands beside me and doesn't stop while I do the dishes, I just nod my head and say yes. It's the only way to avoid more pain at all cost. There are these moments, but also the ones where he tries to talk to me and ask how I am, and then he tells me how he loves me, his firstborn princess. He tells me that I'm the best daughter someone could have, and that he's so proud of me. And I just smile at him and say thank you. But on the inside, I think, if you really knew who I really am and what I did that you don't have, you wouldn't talk to me anymore. He is proud of the daughter he created for himself that I still am in front of him. And also my mother tries to get closer to me after 16 years of distance and letting the church raise us. And the only thing I would tell her if I was honest for a few seconds in the midst of all the lies I protect myself with, I'm sorry, but it's too late. I don't have any emotional connection to my parents, and I never had. The first 16 years of my life were partly wasted. I felt like someone took my childhood from me. Even my memories are blurry. And I know it's technically not my parents' fault, but I want to blame them so badly. And it makes me so mad that I was born because of the church, because they convinced my father to have children. I was cursed before I even existed. And still, I can recall a few beautiful memories of things I did with my friends there. The sleepovers, summer camp, singing together, playing hide and seek in the big building. All of us connected through our fear of the dangerous outside world and hell. There is no moment in my life where I wasn't afraid that some adult could dream or feel. They taught us that God could reveal things about people to you when you have a strong connection to the Holy Spirit, that I was a dirty sinner that acted differently in school. And it was so frightening because when it's out that you messed up, you can't attend certain rituals like the Holy Communion, and that's when people know. They see that you're not taking part in it, and the first thing that comes to mind is, of course, premarital sex. When a couple did it and someone found out, it made sure by the authorities that in a week, everyone knows. And I wanted to avoid people thinking that at all costs, so I was very aware and on guard at all the time. I made sure I had a different app also open while watching Vampire Diaries on my phone, because there you could switch faster, so my mother or father, who still just burst into my room whenever they want to, would never know I would watch something the devil created. My parents and everyone in the church who was responsible for me always tried to shelter me and get anything with a bad influence away from me. But I still watched what I wasn't allowed to. The internet and myself raised me when my beliefs started to break away. People like Jenna Marble taught me things parents should teach their kids. I educated myself on so much stuff I missed out on and started to build my own opinions and morals from 14 to 16. Basic knowledge like it's okay to not believe what your parents believe was so new to me. And now I just want to move out and study something so I'm always safe. I can't wait for the day where I'm finally going to be financially independent and don't have to rely on my father. Wow, it feels so good to put that all in words. When you watch until now, you must be really, really bored. But thank you. I appreciate your attention greatly. 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 I was asked to a threesome and I declined. I was 16 years old and was a swimming instructor at the local outdoor pool during the summer. My job basically was to teach little kids ages 6 to 10 how to float. It was a job where I had to do very little for getting some good cash, so like any teenager looking to make a quick buck, I jumped on it. I had a clock-in time of 3:45 p.m. to 6:15 p.m. Fairly bad time to be swimming in my opinion because summers in India are brutal. But anyway, in those 2.5 hours, me and another instructor had 2 classes of about 30 kids each. The pool had an adjoining deck where the parents could stand and watch their kids flap around in the water. In the second class, we had 2 kids who were pretty good swimmers, and I always wondered why they were in my class from the start of the summer. To clarify, the local pool place had 2 pools, a small one where kids who were starting out had to practice paddling and floating, and a full-size pool where the kids who were a little older and knew how to swim would practice. I, being a first-time instructor, was allocated the small pool for obvious reasons. Anyways, the kid who knew how to swim would be shifted to the big pool by their parents with the recommendation of instructors from my pool later in the summer. When I talked to my partner/other instructor about these kids, he told me that they were at the bigger pool last year, but their moms got them shifted to the pool back this summer. Weird moms, I thought, but shrugged it off. For changing rooms, we instructors had a small outhouse kind of building which barely had a shower and a loo, but no doors or curtains. The changing rooms also had small ventilators through which if someone wanted to could see the person showering. Pretty sucky, but it was after all a small pool place. After 2 classes, both the instructors were off the clock and the next set of instructors would come in for the last 2 classes of the day. Every day when I'd be stepping off the pool, I would talk to the kids' parents about the class and how their kids did, how they could improve, etc. I would make it a point to talk to every parent who wanted to have a word before going to the showers, so that they could be on their way and I could take a shower in peace without making anybody wait for me. The mom of those 2 kids, however, were not interested in that. They would make it a point to wait every day for me to finish, come out of the showers, and then talk to me about anything except their kids. They gave their kids smartphones so that they wouldn't interrupt. It started getting weirder by the day, and I made it a point to keep recommending them to shift their kids to the bigger pool just so that they would get off my back. I couldn't just complain to my supervisor because it wasn't anything extreme, just a little weird. The moms were obviously not willing to listen that their kids ready for the big pool and that they were still learning to paddle and they needed my help. One day after my class, while I was showering, I could see these 2 moms snickering outside the outhouse and looking at me. They couldn't see the whole estate because we blocked off the walls of the ventilator, so you couldn't really stand next to the ventilator, but you could still see the face of the person showering. I was thoroughly grossed out and just wanted to go home. I didn't even bother to acknowledge them and just walked towards the parking lot. I was standing by my bike, putting on the helmet, when I felt a tap on the shoulder. And who would it be but one of the moms? Let's call them M1 and M2. M1. Hi, sir. How are you today? We wanted to talk to you about how our kids did today. Me. Disgusted look. They did fine. Like I said, they don't need to be in my pool. They could shift to the other one. M2. No. They still need you. Plus, it gives us a chance to look at you while you teach them. Me. What? M2. I mean, we could still see how good they are doing in the class. Me. Like I said, they are good swimmers now. They don't need me. Just wanting this weird conversation to be over. M1. Okay. Actually, we were thinking if we could talk to you about something else too. We really need help from you. Me. Look, ma'am, I'm just trying to go home and I'm doing everything I need to for your kids. M1. No, we need you to help us moms. Me. Help you how? M1. We want you to teach us how to swim. We really want to learn and be able to swim with our little angels. Me. I'm sorry, ma'am. I only teach kids. M2. Can't you make an exception for us? We'll make it worth your time. She starts to stroke my arm, and both of them take steps towards me, coming uncomfortably close. I realize exactly what she's implying. At this point, the parking lot was pretty empty because all the kids and their parents had left, and so had my partner. Me. I'm sorry, ma'am. This isn't something that I'm interested in, and can you please not touch me? M1. Don't be ridiculous. We just wanted to learn swimming and do some other things with you. Me. Stop it, ma'am. Do you realize I'm 16 years old and this is illegal and you both would be charged as pedophiles? M2. Oh, come on. You don't look 16. You are lying. Do you really not want us? You always wait after class and talk to us alone. Me. Ma'am, that's my job. I'm supposed to do that. This is making me uncomfortable. If you both don't leave me alone, I'm going to complain to my supervisor and call the police on you. Both of them started squirming and took some steps back. I took the chance to start my bike and rushed away. As soon as I got home, I called my partner and told him exactly what happened. He told me to calm down and told me that we'll talk to the supervisor tomorrow. We never did talk to the supervisor because apparently after I left, both of the moms canceled their kids' membership and they never returned. I didn't really want to pursue the matter, just forget about it. Years after, the Chad in me still says that I could have had a threesome when I was 16 and I'm an idiot who passed it up. But at that time, I was pretty traumatized and didn't know what to make of the whole situation. Also, I'm pretty sure I'm missing out a few lines from the conversation, but I just don't remember quite a bit of it. This is all I remember. Anyways, thanks for reading if you did, and again, discount any mistakes that I might have made. Let me know what you think. My friends went missing when I was 6. I guess to start off, I should introduce myself. My name is Melissa, I'm 16 years old, and around 10 years ago, 4 of my friends went missing. I remember the day clearly, yet some parts are all fuzzed up. It's strange how the mind works. Anyways, I was 6. My dad, older brother Matthew, and younger brother Liam were driving to a birthday party. It was hosted at this old knockoff showbiz pizza place. We lived in a tiny town in Utah, so this was really the only place for kids to hang out. A cheap place for parents to drop off their demons to occupy them. My brother, who was 15 at the time, worked there as a waiter while my dad worked the day shift. When we were really little, my dad would sometimes let one of the managers babysit us, mostly me. I remember him well. He always wore plaid and flannel and almost was always working on something. There was another manager too, but he was very distant. He disliked kids despite having his own. He never talked much. I'm getting off topic. Anyways, the second we pulled into the semi-crowded lot of the pizza place, I hopped out. I threw the glass doors open and ran into the main show area. There was the big stage with bright multicolored lights showcasing 3 classic animatronic animals. There was confetti on the tiled floor and glitter on the tables. I was very quick to find my friend, the birthday boy. He had russet ginger hair and brown eyes. He was 2 years older than me, turning 9 that day. I don't remember his name as my brain repressed this day so much. Mostly him. We were close, I knew that. I probably just wanted to forget to ease the pain. I remember grabbing him into a hug and talking for a while as the other members of the party filled in. There were 5 of us in total. I remember the others, but not much. Only key features. The oldest, I believe, was a boy with dark brown hair, and he was tall. Like really tall. I remember something strange with his eyes. They were cold, yet so warm and welcoming to us. The other boy, I think, was the opposite. He had long, messy, dark hair and was really short. I think his name started with a J, Jeremy or Jamie maybe. I don't even remember if he was a girl or a boy. There was a girl though. I remember her well. She has honey blonde hair and I think green or blue eyes. She was hyper and sweet. I think she called me Melly Bear. I do know she had a puppy, a little yellow lab named Fetch. Strange name, I'm aware. Those were all of them. The 5 of us, great friends. The day was a blur. Talking, eating pizza, playing, watching shows, playing those crappy arcade games, kid stuff. But the shit hit the fan pretty soon. A rabbit costume, I think. It had to be a costume. It moved too fluidly, too human. It scared me. It was yellow with fluffy golden fur and green eyes. It had a purple bow tie and matching buttons. It was terrifying. It said that there was a tradition for birthday parties here, that the Golden Bunny would take the kids to a special birthday room and give them gifts in a private performance. He said he would take us one at a time. The ginger hair boy went first, then the tall one, then the short one, and then her, the honey-haired girl. As he led her out, I swear I could hear him whisper, "Fetch isn't dead, dear. He's with the others. I'll show you him." Minutes passed. After a while, I grew impatient and went to go investigate. I saw the rabbit come out of a room, moving swiftly to the parts and services room near the stage. I walked up to the door, which he had closed, and knocked gently. I heard nothing. Gripping the handle, I twisted it and pushed it inwards, or so I tried. The door was jammed tight. I pushed as hard as my little 6-year-old body could, and finally the door gave way. I caught myself on the slippery tile, the door nearly shutting behind me. Thankfully, there was a bit of light, letting me see a little. The floor was slick with something dark and warm. I didn't realize it right away. I didn't see the huddled mounds. I didn't see the blood on my hands and the blood splattered in the wall. I only saw him. He was lying simply against the wall, hugging his fox plush close to his blood-stained red shirt. I remember crawling over and shaking him, trying to get a response. I remember the next bit fully. I'll write it as I remember. "Hello? Are you awake? Melissa?" "Yes, you idiot. Why are you asleep?" "Mel, you shouldn't be here." He had reached to gently touch my face, blood dripping from his mouth. I only then saw the red, the wound on his stomach. "You're bleeding. Hold on, I could get help." "No, you can't." "But..." "No, Melissa, I'm a goner." He paused to cough some. He weakly lifted the old fox plush to my shaking hands. "Take care of him, will ya?" "You..." "Shh, it's okay. Find him for me. For us. All right?" He was slipping out of consciousness. "Please, hang on." He went limp. I wanted to scream. I couldn't. I couldn't do anything but get up and run as fast as I could. I locked myself in the restroom for a few hours. I washed the blood from my clothes and hands, though it stained a little. I stumbled back into the room afterwards. I'm not sure why. The light illuminated the room fully. There was blood splattered on the floor. Streaks indicated something being dragged. Signs of a struggle were present. I screamed. The police came soon after, but they couldn't find a thing. No bodies, no weapons, no fingerprints. I cried all day. I didn't answer questions. I clung to my brothers. Before we left, I took his hoodie. I still have it in my closet to this day. I remember seeing his mom before we left. I ran to her and hugged her so tight and sobbed harder than I thought possible. It was strange how I felt better clinging to her rather than my own mother. I told her what happened, about the rabbit leading them away. I questioned my dad about a rabbit suit, but he didn't know a thing. There was no birthday party thrown for kids there. There was no private performance for birthday kids. All of it was a lie. I've been putting it off for years, doing minimal research on who this killer could be, but now I feel as if I should dig deeper. I'll go look for clues and keep you guys updated. Wish me luck. I see a boy whenever somebody dies. I was 5 when I first met him. I could still remember it. We were driving to the grocery store in a big van. My dad at the wheel and my mom arguing with my older brother over an M-rated video game he wanted to buy. The commotion started to make my little sister cry. I sat in the back seat all by myself, trying to ignore it all as I played on my Game Boy, but it was too noisy and hot to focus on it. Finally, I gave up and decided to lie down on the seat, taking a nap before we got to the store. I don't know how long I was out, but when I woke up, I was really hot. Sweat was dripping down my scalp and my mouth felt like sandpaper. Sitting up, I rubbed my head and tried to remember where I was, only to realize that the car was parked near the grocery store entrance. My family, no doubt caught up in their arguments, must have forgotten about me. I wasn't alone in the car though. I realized as I noticed there was a strange figure sitting at the passenger seat, looking forward at the car parked in front of us with their hands behind their head. "Who are you?" I asked bluntly, and I could see I'd taken them by surprise. The figure jumped up from their seat and turned their head around to look at me. I could see that it was a boy with pale skin and silver hair that reminded me of the characters in my brother's games. To my surprise, he smiled when he saw me. "Hey there, little guy," he greeted as if he were one of my relatives before he crawled forward into the middle seats. "I didn't think you'd wake up." I backed away as he came closer, which made him laugh as he sat backward in the chair, staring down at me. "Come on, there's no need for that. I swear I won't touch you." Being a 5-year-old, I wasn't equipped to handle a situation like this, and so I resorted to stating the obvious. "This isn't your car," I said. "That's true," he replied as his smile seemed to grow wider. "Don't worry, kid. I won't be here too long. I'm just waiting." "Waiting for what?" I asked back, but in reply he just winked at me before lying back down on the seats. It was then that I noticed the smell around him, ashy and stale, like a dying fire. Not wanting to say anything else to the stranger, I moved to the edge of the seat and stared to the store's entrance, waiting for my family to come back. After some time passed, I saw my mom walk out toward the van alone in a hurry. It seemed she had finally noticed I was missing. "Hey," I said to the stranger, "you need to leave, my mom's coming." "Really?" he asked as he shot back up to look out the window. To my surprise, he seemed excited about the news. Upon seeing her walking down the lot, he turned to me with an oddly somber look, giving what he'd been acting like just moments before. "Well, kid," he said, "it's been fun talking to you, but I've got to get to work. Don't hate me too much for this, all right?" I was about to ask what he meant when a loud noise outside caught my attention. I turned back to the window to see that where my mother had been standing, a car was now in her place. A woman who I assumed was the driver was standing next to the driver's side, screaming and sobbing as a crowd of people surround her. I was confused about what was happening until I saw 2 legs lying in the parking lot, the rest of the body obscured by the parked car. A trail of blood was leaking out from a wound I couldn't see, and as my eyes followed it, I noticed that at the end of the legs were my mother's shoes. I stood frozen for a few seconds as my brain processed the scene, and as tears started to run down my face, I turned around to face the boy. "What did you do?" I called out in anger, only to freeze when I realized I was now alone in the van. Somehow he had slipped out without me even hearing. Now alone and confused, I had no idea what else to do. So I did what any child would have done, crawled into the middle seats, pulled the door open, and ran to my mother. By the time I had gotten up to her, sizable crowd had already formed, and I could hear the wailing of an ambulance in the distance. I tried to shove my way through the onlookers, and as I did, I noticed the dying fire smell again. Looking to the direction of it, I could see a glimpse of silver hair before it disappeared through the group, and a new burst of energy coursed through my body. I pushed through the crowd with a strength I didn't think I was capable, shouting all the way. As I got to the edge of the crowd, who were now being pushed back by the store security, I could see the boy walking out towards my mom, who was lying in a heap next to the entrance. "Leave her alone!" I shouted, and ran forward before any of the guards could stop me. The boy ignored my pleas as he neared my mother's body. When he got close enough to her, he knelt down by her side and raised his hand out to her. I was just about to reach them when I felt a pair of hands grab my waist and lift me up. "No!" I screeched, kicking and punching at my assailant as they pulled away. I looked over to see that it was my father, who was staring at me with a panicked expression as he marched back toward the crowd. "Let me go," I protested. "You have to stop him." But it was too late, I realized as I turned my head back. The boy had his hand resting on my mother's face, and he was staring at me with a look of remorse. In an instant, I stopped all my protesting and began to sob into my dad's shoulder. Later, when we were in the police office, we'd been told that my mother died on the scene. In her hurry to come back for me, she wasn't paying attention to the traffic of the parking lot and didn't notice a car pulling through the next lane. The woman was on her phone and didn't notice my mom until it was too late. I tried to tell them about the boy in the car, who knelt beside my mother as she was lying on the asphalt. However, everyone told me that I was the only one who had tried to run up to her. They even looked through security footage of the parking lot to see if there was anyone else in the van with me before my mother's death, and they saw that there was nobody else inside but me. Eventually, they had a specialist come in and say that the heat of the van, mixed with the trauma of the experience, had caused me to hallucinate the whole thing. Still though, for the next few days, whenever we ride in that old van, I smell that dying fire scent lingering in the air. I've been paralyzed for 5 years. This morning, I woke up with feeling in my legs again. When I was 17 years old, I was in a horrific car accident that claimed the lives of my father and my little brother Jax. Not only did I lose two of the most important people to me on the same day, but I suffered an irreversible spine injury that left me paralyzed from the waist down. I was a very athletic kid, so suddenly being paralyzed was like having something precious ripped away from me. Track was suddenly no longer an option. My friends were still nice to me, but we eventually all drifted apart as I had completely altered my life around my injury. I had to move to the bottom floor of my 2-story house, and things that I once did mindlessly took planning and a lot of energy to complete. It took about a year to finally get into a steady rhythm of things, and another 2 to accept that being paralyzed is a part of who I am now. There is no cure for being paralyzed. At least that's what I thought. Last night, I was at a bar with a friend of mine named Frankie. She's a loud and rambunctious girl who likes to drink way too much, but I love her to death. It was around midnight when I first spotted the stranger staring at me from a corner booth at the bar. He had a drink in his hand that he was slowly sipping on. He was handsome, in an almost otherworldly sort of way. His porcelain skin seemed to glow in the dank bar light, and his amber eyes were fixated on me. He looked like an angel. He was rather dressed up for a bar in a button-down shirt and black slacks, but his tie was missing and the first few buttons of his shirt were undone. He looked like a businessman that was just having fun. I haven't been on a single date since being in my wheelchair. There are people that honestly don't care about it, but the feeling of being a burden hinders me from going back into the dating scene, so having a gorgeous man openly stare at me was rather unnerving. It took about 10 minutes for Frankie to notice him, and with a sly smile on her face, she subtly found someone to occupy her time, leaving the seat next to me at the table open for someone to claim. It didn't take long for him to take a seat next to me, and as he sat down, I got this feeling of dread in the pit of my stomach. He introduced himself as Ray, and we chatted on the weather and what we do for a living. I'm an artist, and he is actually a businessman, as I guessed. It explains the attire. Talking with him was like breathing, simple and easy. He never once asked about why I'm in a wheelchair, which is why I agreed to talk with him longer. As he ordered me more and more drinks, I found myself willingly talking about it for the first time since it happened. The question that followed after my story was one that still strikes me as important. What would you do to be able to walk again? It seemed like a harmless question, one that my friends have asked me before. Of course, the answer is always the same. Anything. I would do anything to be able to feel my legs again, to be able to walk and run and reach the cookies that my mother keeps just out of my reach. His tone was the only thing that was different, the thing that made me uneasy. It was almost teasing, his eyes alight with joy as I answered him. In the following hours, I don't know how, but I knew I made a very grave mistake by answering the way I did. The conversation ended rather abruptly after that, with Frankie falling into the table and spilling our drinks everywhere. I called us an Uber for our way home and prayed that she would be okay on her own. As we waited outside, Ray took my hand in his own and delicately planted a kiss on my knuckles, his eyes gleaming in the darkness. I'll be seeing you soon. Those words now haunt me as I stare at myself in the mirror, standing on my legs for the first time in 5 years. The words weren't a request. It was a statement, a promise. He will be seeing me, and I cannot help but wonder if his gift this morning is a threat or an order. What will I do to be able to walk again? I woke up this morning with the deadly-looking dagger on my nightstand, and symbols that I've never seen before were carved into the hilt, overlapping one another. There were triangles and circles and swirling patterns that resembles vines. That wasn't the only thing different. I could feel my legs. It wasn't just a gradual warm-up to walking. I could stand and jump and run. I'm not sure what I got myself into, but something tells me Ray is not just a normal person. Ever since waking up, I've periodically checked on the dagger, but it hasn't moved from the position on my nightstand. The symbols seem to glow as the night progresses, and I worry what will happen when I see Ray again.